sign these.
Sounds good. I'll put these to the side then.
Okay. You got item 1 and all that? Okay.
That's your abstain.
Council President's going to be a little late. All right, Peter, all set? Yeah, Peter has it.
Here, you're all set?
Wait, sitting, and then it's our usual protocol. Oh, yeah. I'll sign them as they come up. I'd like to call this April 5th session of the Hoyoke City Council to order. The clerk will call the roll and record those members present.
Bartley.
Here.
Bresnahan. Graney.
Here.
Jourdain.
Here.
Leahy.
Present.
LeBron Martinez.
Here.
Lisi. McGee. McGivern.
Here.
Roman.
Here.
Sullivan. Tallman.
Here.
Bacon. Valentine. Here.
All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
God bless America.
And the city of Hoyoke.
And the City Council.
Dan said he's going to be a little late.
I don't know.
Keeping the door open.
We have 2 items currently laid on the table. Item number 1 regarding Verizon New England. We also have item number 2 regarding traffic changes on Leary Drive. It's my understanding item 2 is ready to move forward. We can either continue out of order to go to public comment and come back to that, or we can at this time take up Leary Drive.
Make a motion, take 2 off the table.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded to remove item number 2 from the table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. The Committee on Ordinance, to whom was referred an order that relevant sections of Chapter 86 of the Code of Ordinances be amended to allow the Hoyoke Housing Authority to issue permits for parking on Leary Drive and to authorize the Hoyoke Housing Authority to tow vehicles parked without permits. Further, that the listing of spaces on Leary Drive be reviewed and amended as necessary to update the location of the permit parking spaces and visitors' spaces. Have considered the same, recommend that the order be adopted. Councilors Vacan, Lisi, Shatnoff, Bartley, and Jourdain.
Motion to pass the first reading?
Motion has been made and seconded to pass the first reading. Under discussion, Councilor Lisi.
Thank you. As you mentioned, Councilor Bacon is out this evening, and I'm filling in with the committee reports as vice chair. This order was filed by Councilor Leahy, and I believe Councilor Bacon also filed a very similar order, but it seemed that there were some issues related to parking and adequate parking for the residents of the Housing Authority over on the Leary Drive area, and so we decided to authorize permanent parking spaces and the Housing Authority to tow stray vehicles that are not actually in the appropriate spaces as according to their permits. It's pretty straightforward from there. If anyone else would like to add anything, I welcome their comments.
Thank you. The only thing I'll just note for the record, on December 1st, 2015, I filed this, and the final language was that spaces designated as permit parking only on Barrett Ave, Elting Circle, Leary Drive, Little Ave, York Circle shall require a permit issued by the Housing Authority to the residents of Housing Authority property. Any person who violates this section, in addition to the fine provided for pursuant to subsection B, may also have their vehicle towed by the city at the discretion of the Housing Authority in accordance with the procedures set forth in Division 2 of Article 4. Also, by your vote and under your consideration under this ordinance change, it also makes a number of different grammatical and parking regulatory changes to the Hoyoke Code of Ordinances. Matt Mainville, at my request, is here this evening. I see Matt, and I also see, who, as you know, is the very capable Executive Director of the Hoyoke Housing Authority. I also see with him Priscilla Chesky, Legal Counsel for the Housing Authority. They have reviewed it. They have reviewed this with our law department. Everyone is in agreement that this is the final version, and I think we're able to move forward. This has been on the table for approximately a month-ish or a month and a half. And I did also note that these are some of the regulations that we have to get on the books in order to really improve the Bowdoin Village parking situation as it is. And furthermore, that there is not going to be, ticket and towing and all of those type of actual enforcement until the new parking lot is put in at Lower Leary Drive. So this is just a number of the procedural steps to make that happen, to really improve that. And again, hats off to the Housing Authority for putting together the 26 additional spaces that'll be coming there on Leary Drive. Is there any questions, thoughts, comments? Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm in favor of the order. Just a quick clarification. When you say the Housing Authority would be authorized to have a vehicle towed, do they still have to call the police department to ticket first?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Okay. All in favor of passing the first reading?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Motion to pass the second reading?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to pass the second reading. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved.
Motion that the passage be ordained.
Is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded that the passage be ordained. There is no further discussion. The clerk will call the roll. A yes vote is in favor of the ordinance changes. A no vote is to deny it.
Bartley?
Yes.
Graney?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee? McGivern?
Yes.
Roman?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Valentine?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
By your vote, you have approved the ordinance changes. Thank you, Housing Authority. Appreciate your time. Thank you. All right. Just for the record, for the remainder of the evening, Councilor Leahy has been selected to vote first this evening, and that now brings us to public comment.
Motion to suspend the rules and allow the speakers that have signed up to be able to speak.
Second.
Second.
Okay, and that goes for Hoyoke and non-Hoyoke.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Motion on the floor is to allow all people who have signed up to the list, 19 of whom, and I would ask that we, under the suspension, 1 minute apiece?
Can we do 90 seconds, minute and a half?
90 seconds. 90 seconds on the clock. Then you'll hear this.
Boom.
A little tip tap. So everyone, within reason, I don't have a timer up here, but work with us. So 19 people, we're thinking 90 seconds. Counselor Tallman.
Yeah, I just want to state that, and I know normally it's 2 minutes, and people at home had contacted me that sometimes people go even 3, 4, 5 minutes. So, I mean, I know it's hard to time, but I think out of respect, people get their time to speak, be brief, and get the point across, and so we can move on. So everybody gets a chance.
Yeah, and just so people are aware, generally it's 2 minutes, 7 people. So we're, trying to be as extremely generous with this, considering we also have had a committee hearing on many of these topics. But 19 people, 90 seconds, and we would ask you to please work with us on sticking to that. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. First up, Josh Knox of 40 Morgan Street. Josh, welcome.
Good evening, everybody.
Is that on, Josh? Just double check, make sure that's clicked on. Now you are, thanks.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for letting me speak. I'm here to speak on behalf of myself, 40 Morgan Street, and the trustees, statewide conservation organization, in both cases in favor of approving Community Preservation Act to go on the November ballot. Thank you to the DGR committee last night and Chairman Bartley for a great review of the various facets of the program, as well for their recommendation unanimously to the council to pass at 1.5% and with the 3 exemptions that they listed. I just wanted to read a quote. We were talking to Peter J. Miller, Director of Community Development from the City of Westfield, one of the communities who has been benefiting from these funds that actually we've been paying into at the Registry of Deeds. It's time for us, by the way, to start getting our due. His quote is, "It's been a lifesaver for us in Westfield, allowing us to get projects done that might not fit any other funding source. As someone who works in community development, CPA is helping us to fill the gap where CDBG and federal funds are being cut." So I'd just like to urge the council to pass it so it can go in front of the voters, so they can decide for this great program for the city of Holyoke. Thank you.
Great, thank you for coming, Josh, we appreciate it. Next speaker that signed up is Deborah Aloisi of 147 Sycamore Street. Deb, welcome.
Hi, thank you, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I know that this is probably going through the judicial process, but I really have to speak my mind right now about the Needle Exchange Program. I know there's other things that are going on, but this is something that's very important. I am a taxpayer, I'm a homeowner, I've been a homeowner for 9 years, and I think the Needle Exchange is a good thing, and I'll tell you why. Because this is the first point of contact as far as meeting people where they're at, who are in the most need. This could be people that are under a bridge, it could be people in abandoned buildings, and I have worked with the homeless population before. And that's the first step to a successful intervention, is meeting the person where they're at. And Needle Exchange does not only help with not spreading the disease of HIV or hepatitis C, but if the person is re-injecting themselves with that needle, they're open to a staph infection, endocarditis. This is even harder to treat. So this could be the first point of contact for a person to start making decisions in their best interest as far as using a clean needle, considering that what their actions are and considering maybe getting into treatment. It's a gateway to treatment. It's not a gateway for using more drugs. The drugs are here, and that's what is attracting the illicit substance use here. The Needle Exchange is a gateway to treatment, and I wish that you would consider it as such. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next speaker is Darlene Elias of 17 Clark Street. Darlene, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to let you know that today I stand here very proudly with my people, with the Latino community here of Holyoke. I've been a resident of Holyoke for 40 years. Many of you know that I've been here very long term. And today I feel very proud to see the amount of effort that's gone on with the Latino community to organize this effort and to ask you to pass the resolution to free Oscar Lopez. I know that many of you have thought in your mind, is it the place of a city council to even entertain this resolution? I would argue that it really is. Hispanics here are a concentrated number. They're a majority. We're the largest concentrated number of people outside of Puerto Rico. Nelson Mandela is very important to our community. We identify with him as a leader. And I also think this is a very symbolic event. So by you supporting that resolution, by you voting in favor of that, you're also making a statement that you support the Latino community here in Holyoke. So I'd ask for you to vote in favor for that. And also a little plug, I also support the CPA Preservation Act. In addition to that, I would say that the cost of the CPA passing that, if it goes to the ballot, the individual cost will be very minimal to what we can gain together. So thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. Next speaker is Juan Sanchez of 203 Pine Street. Juan, welcome.
Good evening, Councilors. Juan Sanchez, 203 Pine Street. I'm here to speak on behalf of the order presented by Councilor Roman for the City of Holyoke to issue a letter to President Obama urging for the release of Oscar Lopez Rivera. The reason I'm here is because, unfortunately, I didn't get to learn my Puerto Rican history too much. Growing up in Holyoke, I got to learn about American history, which I love, but not my Puerto Rican history, and meeting people like Jose and other people who do take pride in the Puerto Rican history. I got to learn about Oscar Lopez Rivera and his story and what occurred. He was charged for seditious, I believe, behavior, and he was been in jail for 35 years. He's actually one of the longest serving political prisoners in the world. So there's other countries that have actually released political prisoners for the same crime, and we have not. I also had learned that every other person charged for this crime along with him has been released, and he's the only one still in prison. So it's not that they're all in prison and we're asking for his release, but they've actually all been released except for him. I learned that the UN Decolonization Council for the past 15 years has asked the United States to pardon Oscar Lopez Rivera and for his freedom, that 13 Nobel Peace Prize winners have requested for the freedom of Oscar Lopez Rivera. And he was actually pardoned in 1999 by President Bill Clinton, he denied it because some of his fellow prisoners weren't being released with him. So it speaks to his character that he decided not to go and say, you know what, I stand with the people, and until they get released, I'm not going, even though he was already pardoned. I believe that as a city, even though we're not in Puerto Rico, because we do have the highest concentration of Puerto Ricans outside of Puerto Rico, it would send a message to Obama that as a city, we stand with our residents that are of Puerto Rican descent and the island of Puerto Rico and its leaders in asking for the release of Oscar Lopez Rivera. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. And our next speaker is Marisol Rivera of 41 Princeton Street. Marisol, welcome.
Good evening. I'm also here to support the resolution for Oscar Lopez. I know that many people still think he should be incarcerated, but remember he was prisoned or jailed for hearsay. They never had anything on him. They never found anything. It was all about hearsay. I just want to read to you part of a letter that he wrote to his granddaughter just last year. Regarding the question you asked about my future, I will tell you that at night, in those batches of insomnia, I look at the ceiling of my cell and meditate on the things I would like to do. The future for me is something unpredictable, but fear is not part of a future outside of the gulag. I never wonder if I will feel inhibited or if the reality will seem strange, or if I will shrink before a world that will take time to recognize. Puerto Rico has changed. So has the Chicago of my adolescence. Those nights when I stay awake thinking about my projects, I animate myself by telling myself that at the end, I have survived 70 years, and I have walked beneath the shadow of death many times. If a man has managed to survive this, how is he going to be afraid of the free air when it hits him in the face? He also wrote to his granddaughter, he wanted to people that are rallying for his freedom just to let them know he has always been free of mind and soul. He wants his release. And that's what I'm asking for you, to please pass his resolution for Oscar Lopez Rivera's release. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marisol. Next up is Efrain Vasquez of 138 Linden Street. Efrain, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. Good evening. I'm here to speak up on the resolution for Oscar Lopez as well. I know some of you guys think that some of the charges that was brought up upon him by the government, you guys probably think that he might be a terrorist. In fact, that he is not. Usually the government accuses, I mean, if you think about the 60s all the way to the 70s, even the late 80s, that anybody that spoke up against the government would be called a terrorist, where in reality the government were being the terrorists themselves by locking up people that spoke up against the government. And I really respect this man. Oscar Lopez is like the Nelson Mandela tour, basically, because he stood up for a lot. Just imagine a person like Nelson Mandela that got out of prison and became president. And I think we have a lot of faith in this man, because he was a leader that was actually standing up for a lot of stuff, and back in our days, and standing up for Puerto Rico's liberation as well. A little bit about Oscar Lopez. He was a Vietnam veteran. He was a Chicago organizer, and organizers in Chicago are not welcome because, of course, they speak up against the government. So that's the public number one's enemy right there. He also won a bronze medal, and he was a co-founder of Pedro Albizu Campos High School, which is a very successful high school in Chicago. If you guys make some history about that high school, there's a lot of students, there's a high rate of graduation, and a lot of them graduated to become successful business owners and and some successful politicians. Not only that, he was a co-founder of a beautiful Puerto Rican culture center in Chicago. So if you ever take a vacation, y'all could check out his culture center that that he was one of the co-founders, and it goes to show you about his leadership. I just wanted to tell you a little bit more about his positive side, why you should support it. And I think at that time, and it's pretty clear that back in those days, anybody that spoke up would get not only punished, but I think he already served this time. And it goes to show, like this gentleman Joshua was saying, it spoke a lot about his character and his leadership, on how he actually put his friends to get their freedom before he gets his. So I just hope that you guys support what we're trying to bring to the table, and appreciate you for listening.
Thank you for coming, Ephraim. And our next speaker is Owen Broadhurst of 1328 Northampton Street. Owen, welcome.
I would like to lend my voice in support also to the Community Preservation Act and to the Needle Exchange Program. Others who have spoken on this spoke with an eloquence I cannot command, and I very much appreciate their words. Please know that their thoughts are my thoughts. I speak tonight on Oscar Lopez. This is a man who spent so many years in prison primarily because of one charge, the charge of seditious conspiracy. What was the seditious conspiracy? What was the seditious conspiracy that landed him in prison? What was the seditious conspiracy that landed him in solitary confinement for 12 years? 12 years of what is internationally recognized as a form of torture. He refused to back down from an assertion that his people should not be colonized. He refused to back down from an assertion that his people should not be subjugated. He refused to back down from an assertion that his people are not second-class citizens and ought not be treated as second-class citizens. And so people wonder, what is the relevance of Oscar Lopez to this community, to this town, where we have a community that feels it is being subjugated, where we have a community that feels it is being colonized, where we have a community that feels it is being treated so very often as second-class citizens. That is the connection. That is the connection. People are standing up to be recognized. People are standing up for justice. People are standing up to be treated as citizens of this city, just as Oscar Lopez demanded that his people be treated as world citizens, not subject to colonization, not subject to suppression, not subject to subjugation, but as human beings. My hope is that the City Council understands this, and that the City Council tonight sends a message: free this man, stand by this community. Thank you.
Jose Bao of 392 High Street. Welcome, Jose.
That's Bo.
I'll get it right eventually. You've corrected me about 6 times on that.
Okay, I'm sorry. You know that I always start by thanking you guys, because a lot of people, even some of us here, don't really appreciate the kind of work that you guys do. To get elected and make difficult decisions is not easy. So number one, I'm going to say thank you, but I will not take more than 90 seconds. Let me tell you something. I will not repeat the stuff that they said about Don Oscar Lopez. Don Oscar Lopez is a national hero. He defended our freedom, like some of you who are veterans, and some of us did. I saw so many Puerto Ricans die in Vietnam, and some of them came back. They were crazy. They were, I don't know what happened to people that what happened to people that go to war. I just want to take it one step beyond. I think that right now, you have something in front of you that you can sign, that can put Holyoke into history. You're going to be part of a national and an international demand. People that are asking, not only in this country, all over the freaking planet, asking, let this man out of jail, please. He's not, you're going to be part. I tell you what, you guys do it, and I guarantee you that there's going to be so many other city councils in the United States that will follow your leadership. With that, because if I keep repeating, Judan Oscalis, he's an outstanding person, brought up in this country. And you know why Puerto Ricans came out of Puerto Rico? Because the United States of America put some people, and you have to read some books like War Against All Puerto Ricans. Put some people in power in Puerto Rico that people were making like 50 cents sometimes an hour, 25 cents an hour, and they were exploiting the people. So people came out because of poverty. I remember when I came here in 1974, which is a building in the flats that's got the roof there, and I remember somebody, Mr. Mendoza, used to live there, and I drive by there all the time, and I said, oh my God. That building that just collapsed, I said, oh my God, such a beautiful structure. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, we came out to work at the farms, factories, especially in this area in Holyoke. We went to, Hawaii. When there was no work in the United States, they took boats of Puerto Rican people, shipped them to Hawaii. And there's a lot of Puerto Rican people in Hawaii. But, and some of us joined the Army. I joined the Army because I couldn't go to college. I joined the Vietnam War. I didn't have to sign for it because they were going to say, okay, they were going to, mandatory, whatever you call that, the draft, yeah. And then I signed for it because I said, I want to go to college. I have absolutely no money to go to school. And thank God, number one, that I went to the military. Number two, thank God that I got out. And I advise all young people, please do not step a foot in the military right now, because we have a lot of support in this country right now for kids to go to school, to go to college. When I was born, we didn't even have water in my house. I had to walk. Am I talking too much?
Yeah.
All right, I tell you what.
You're over 90.
I was so poor, and I came to Holyoke, and I tell you, Holyoke gave me, started in Holyoke Community College, went to UMass, graduated. Thank you, and I got to tell you something, man. This man has to come out of jail, but it's going to be historical for all of us, but in particular for those of you who vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Next speaker, Marilyn Nunez of 63 Brown Avenue. Marilyn, welcome.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Marilyn Nunez, resident of Holyoke, 63 Brown Avenue, like you say, I'm sorry. And I'm here to stand and support, the freedom for Oscar Lopez. Many things has been said about Oscar Lopez this evening, I'm not gonna speak, about the same thing everybody has said. But one thing that needs to be mentioned, he's a veteran from Vietnam. He was condecorated with a Purple Heart because when he was in Vietnam, all his group of soldiers that were attacked, everybody has been killed. He's the only one that survived. And I look at this man as our hero, as our Puerto Rican hero. He's in jail not because he did something wrong or because he committed a crime. I think he's in jail because he has spoke about what he believed, what it was right for Puerto Rico. And another thing, I look at this man as being a father, a grandfather, a brother, which he's been in there for 33 years. 12 years of those 33 years, he was in solitary, which they tried to break him down, but what they did they make him strong in that situation. And I ask to all of you here tonight, councilors, to pass, to approve the resolution to free Oscar Lopez. Like he say, he's been free emotionally, spiritually, mentally, but he just want to be out. Whatever years he has of life remaining, allow them to spend it with his time, with his family, with his grandkids. For all these years that he's been in there, know or share time with his grandkids. I ask for, to approve that resolution of free Oscar Lopez. As a Latina woman and representing my people, the Puerto Rican community, we all together asking for that. This is not here only in Holyoke. It's happening in Puerto Rico. It's happening in New York. It's happening in Chicago. It's happening in other states. We getting together to fight for what we believe, the freedom of our people. God bless you all.
Thank you. Next up is Jason Ferreira. Jason hails from 6 Taylor Street. Welcome, Jason.
I do. Thank you very much. Changing course a bit, I'm just here to talk very briefly about the Community Preservation Act. I spoke last night about it as well. A couple of points I want to make is that our residents are already putting into the trust fund that funds the match from the state through Registry of Deeds fees. So, I think we certainly want to try to get that money that our residents are contributing to. Another thing is, I think we're all aware of the building collapses recently. CPA money can be used to, take some preventative measures against things like that happening. I think the building that collapsed on High Street onto Jose Bo's business cost, I think it's like $1.4 million to clean up. That's money that we're spending now that had we had CPA money in place, we could have taken some preventative measures to not have to do that. And lastly, the CPA is different from almost any other city or municipal expenditure in that the city in Holyoke, in that the city council actually is the final has the final decision as to where the money is spent. So certainly the ward councilors know their ward issues the best. I think. I mean, I served as a ward councilor, and we got into it in Ward 4, and I know that the ward councilors do a good job, and I think that that's the best way of running this government. And I just would encourage you to consider putting it on the ballot and letting the residents decide whether or not to approve it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Always good to see you again. Our former colleague. Next up is Barbara Blodgett. Barbara resides at 171 Hillside Avenue, Holyoke. Welcome, Barbara. You got to use the microphone, dear. Oh, okay. Okay, great. Thanks, Barbara. That's very sweet. Next up, David Yass. David Yass is from 20 Sydney Avenue. Welcome, David.
Thank you. I'll be very brief since Councilor Bartley was very generous letting me up here last night. First of all, I'm here in favor of the resolution for Oscar Lopez Rivera. People already said a lot about it. We had a great visit from his brother Jose last week. Some of you saw that. We had just this afternoon, we had a great march up here in support of that. We had a great conversation about it last night and won everybody over. So, and I think it's something good for an entire community. And on a more unfortunate note, on one of the late file orders, I just want to express my fullest respect and support for Councilor Shatnoff. Thank you.
Okay. Hear on that. Next up is Adrian Dalen. Adrian resides at 22 Keefe Avenue. Adrian, welcome.
Dalen. Thanks.
All right.
First of all, citizen engagement is beautiful. I love what I'm seeing tonight. Thank you, councilors, for accommodating and everyone for showing up. I'm here to speak on behalf of both the CPA and the resolution to free Oscar Lopez. First, the CPA. Councilors, please approve this for all three of its important purposes. And I'd also like to urge all of us who are invested in this that we will need to continue advocating with the state to continue matching those funds if we really want to get the full benefit of it. Now, the free Oscar Lopez resolution. Elected decision makers, lawmakers such as yourselves, basically we have two ways of approaching decisions like this. You can approach it as a trustee, someone who's entrusted to handle the hard questions and that we entrust to really figure out the complex issues. Or you could address the problem as a representative, someone who's really just there to be a voice of the people in the community. some things have to be handled as trustees, something like managing a budget, which is really complex and requires you guys to really be the experts on an issue like that. Other issues, like one of cultural importance and significance, like the Oscar Lopez resolution, are a great opportunity to listen and to be representatives. And we have heard tonight from the people, we have heard what the people of Holyoke, how they feel about this. We have heard a lot about the cultural significance it holds for a large section of our population. And I hope that you will take this opportunity to listen and be representatives for your community. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Adrian. Next up is Paul Bassett. Paul resides at 966 Main Street. Welcome, Paul. Good to see you again.
Hello. I also support Oscar being freed. I think it's about time. It's a good idea. My wife feels the same way. But I'm here to talk about Ingleside Springdale neighborhood. We have a problem with cats down there. Someone took upon themselves to tear apart the fence at Dean and put cat houses there. Also at the boat ramp further down in Springdale, they've put them there without permits. There is an ordinance for this, and I'm just not getting any real good response from the Board of Health. And they don't seem to be too concerned that the fence is cut open and it's clear to the river from there. It's just not, it's a school, it's not a, you know, and they informed me that it wasn't public property, that's why they didn't need a permit, or that's why it was not part of the ordinance or something. So I have a petition with about 16 signatures, all the butters of these properties, which should have been notified per the ordinance, that weren't, and at least 4 of them have complained to the Board of Health, and the Board of Health has no record of complaints. They have no record of the 180-day filing for the health records of the cats. They just don't have any records at all. And they informed me that, or the animal control officer informed me that the officer before him just was really bad with records. And one of the neighbors told me that he's unfortunately passed on from cancer. I don't know if that's true or not. I believe his name was Donald. If not, I'd like to get his input on it too. And I do support the CPA. I just feel that it really was pushed through fastly, and I wish that it was worded a little different. But I do fully support that. I think it's a great thing for the city. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Next up is Rosemary Arnold. Rosemary lives at 30 Mountain Road. Rosemary, welcome.
Thank you. I'm here as the chair for the Community Preservation Act Committee, and I'd like to say thank you to everyone who has taken the consideration on the proposal that we put forward. We're hoping that it'll go to the November ballot. And so at this time, I think the timing is right. I'd like to see the conversation begin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next up is Fiore Grassetti. Fiore is from 640 Page Boulevard, which I recognize as the union headquarters of in Springfield located. Fiore, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I appreciate the chance to speak to the everybody this evening. So my name is Fiore Grassetti. I'm president of the Pioneer Valley Central Council, Labor Council. I represent about 70 unions and about 20,000 members in Pioneer Valley. About 500 of those members reside here in Holyoke. Before you this evening is a resolution against a bad trade agreement. I want to be clear that we are all in favor of good trade agreements, but this particular one, the TPP, is a bad trade agreement. In the city of Springfield, we are actually bringing back manufacturing in reference to the CRR manufacturing facility. It's the train car building for the T cars in Boston. In that, it was mandated that those cars have to have final assembly in the state of Massachusetts. If the TPP were in place, that slogan, or the Buy American slogan, the fact that they had to be built or assembled in the States, we would not be having that happen. When you interfere with someone's right to sell widgets, whatever it may be, they can appeal it and beat it down. In Holyoke, again, we've got a lot of empty buildings. It's not just manufacturing. When you start looking at prescriptions, there's, it has to do with prescriptions, there's environmental issues in this thing. If it's a trade agreement, then why don't we stick to trade agreements? It has to do with patents. There's a lot of things that people are sneaking in this agreement. It was secretive up until like 2 months ago. So I'm hoping the information I gave you was favorable. It seems like it came out of committee, and that's why it's coming up tonight. So I appreciate the time to address it with you guys, and I hope you support the resolution this evening. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Next up is Terry Plum. Terry resides at 70 Pinehurst Road. Terry, welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience. I'm the president of the board of the Holyoke Public Library Corporation, and on March 8th, the Library Corporation voted to support the CPA, so I'm here to speak to that. They supported it, and then personally, I support it because I think it's a chance for entrepreneurship in Holyoke. So the state will match 25, 50%, depending on the year, for the CPA funds that we tax ourselves. But I think the real opportunity is in the match against other grants. So, for example, the stained glass windows, that required a match from the city against Mass Historic. In the building of the library, we were required to make a match for the Massachusetts Facilities, Cultural Facilities Grant. So with CPA, the Holyoke has a chance to have a fund that will match against other grants and provide it with an entrepreneurship opportunity. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next speaker is Anitzia Isaza of 71 Cherry Hill. Anitzia, welcome.
Intia Isaza, thanks. 71 Cherry Hill, thank you for hearing us all speak tonight. I wanted to speak in support of CPA, both as a resident of Holyoke and also as someone who works in nonprofit development in Western Mass. I was recently speaking at a panel in Boston hosted by Boston University with Mayor Morse, and it was on historic preservation and planning in, well, actually nationwide and internationally. And I just want to say it came up over and over again how important CPA dollars have been to communities that have had successful historic renovation in their downtown districts. So there's a lot of success around the state with it. Given the fact that it's just a vote by city council to put it forth to a vote for the citizens of the city, I don't really see what there is to lose. I think there's a lot of time left for healthy debate about the details of it. And since we are already paying, or citizens of Holyoke are already paying into funds that gets matched statewide, it's an opportunity to bring those dollars back into the city so that we control those grants. And as was stated before, as a developer, I know that in order to leverage that state money, you do need a commitment from the city to come first. And so CPA makes that pot of money that the city can have control over to kind of direct energy and money towards projects that we think are important. It just gives the city more power to do that. So that's why.
All right, thank you very much. Last but certainly not least, Stephen Bosco of 430 Appleton Street. Stephen, welcome.
Good evening, thank you. Here to speak on what is perhaps one of the less exciting items on the agenda tonight. I think it's item number 27C, and there's another one, maybe 27N. This is the proposed ordinance that establishes fines for the disposal of a number of items on residential property or perhaps on other types of properties. And in reading down that list of items, I see things like refrigerators or tires or air conditioners. And as a property owner and a landlord myself, a lot of the items on the list are familiar things that I see on a pretty regular basis on my property. Often they're disposed of by my tenants, or maybe sometimes they're brought there by myself or my staff as we're staging these items to dispose of them properly at a later time. I did attend the at least one of the committee meetings where this idea was discussed, but there wasn't a public comment period at that time, so I'm speaking about it now. I think this is a good idea, but I'm concerned that maybe the wrong people might be snared by this. And I think that if there's a way it can be done, I think the council should consider putting in an exception that the fines would not be levied upon people who have the permission of the property owner to place certain items on their property. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. All right, and that concludes public comment. Okay, did we want to suspend rules,
Suspend
Mr.
the
Chairman,
necessary
to any
rules.
of the various items spoken to some moments ago?
Can I suspend the rules and just take quickly, it'll be a very quick matter on the public safety, I'm sorry, public service subcommittee. I see the persons in the audience tonight. We had a quick interview regarding the planning department.
Okay, let's take a look here. Public service report.
Ryan has to get out of the file.
Okay, I don't see any on the agenda.
Second.
Second.
Okay, do you have the item? He's gonna have to get it. You wanna come back to that?
I can just
Once
give a
he
brief
has it.
overview of, well, he's.
I need the committee report.
Okay.
So why don't we take up an item?
Yep.
And then we'll come back to that.
Sounds
Okay?
good.
So we'll try to minimize the wait for whomever.
Motion to take up item number 31C.
31C, okay?
Second.
Okay, 31C is the, okay, very good. Let me just take out the file. Okay, motion on the floor is to suspend the rules to go to item number 31C. This is related to Oscar Lopez Rivera. All in favor of suspending the rules for this purpose?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item number 31C. The Committee on Development and Government Relations, to whom was referred an order that the City Council pass the attached resolution entitled "The Humanitarian Matter of Oscar Lopez Rivera." Have considered the same. Recommend that the order be adopted. Councilors Bartley, McGivern, Tallman, Sullivan, and Roman.
Motion receive and adopt the committee report.
Second.
Been made and seconded to receive and adopt the committee report. Under discussion, the chairman, Mr. Bartley.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we had a really great hearing last night, very lengthy one, and I think you heard just about everything tonight that we discussed last night, except, we did it in a more concise fashion. I laid down the ground rules, and they were just really right on point. And I congratulated them last night, and I meant it sincerely. So, and I'll congratulate them again tonight for kind of staying on point more or less. And so, I think the maker of the order would probably be better to speak on this issue than me. So we'll turn over to Councilor Roman.
Okay, Councilor Roman.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Chairman Bartley. And I'd just like to begin by thanking the residents of the city of Holyoke for all the work that they have done. But equally as important, I'd like to thank all of my colleagues on this council. No man is an island and no man stands alone. And these 15, because I will include former Councilor Jen Chatanoff, my colleagues have all taken an open mind and heart to listening to you, the residents of the city of Holyoke, with regards to this resolution. And it meant the world to see Councilor Leahy and Councilor Bartley, Councilor Jordan, Councilor Bresnahan, all of us, really, Lisi, Gladys LeBron Martinez, all take an open mind to who this man was. I go back and just truly take this matter and bring it to the city of Holyoke, because that's the guise, and I think the litmus test that we as councilors have all come to with regards to these resolutions. And as we continue to have these conversations, what is the impact for the residents of the city of Holyoke? And I think I could do no better job than our residents and the constituents here today who have expressed that Oscar Lopez Rivera in this resolution means the world to the constituents of the city of Holyoke. I thank you specifically, Mr. President, for always being great with the Puerto Rican community and supporting us, but all of my colleagues that were there and have listened and have truly made this about the Holyoke, Puerto Rican, and Latino community, and not necessarily just a national issue, but specifically to the Latino and Puerto Rican community here in the city of Holyoke. And with that, Mr. President, I yield my time.
Thank you. Councilor Leahy.
Yeah, thank you. I had the opportunity to go and to meet Oscar's brother, Jose, and he did a wonderful job at the library last week, and he gave a wonderful speech that was you could just hang on every second of every word that he said. He was very intelligent and very, he spoke about a lot of different things, but one of the big things is talking about immigration, the people from Ireland that immigrated over here, the migration from the Hispanics, the Puerto Ricans that migrated here. So in my due diligence, in my research, I'm looking, this gentleman is serving, this person is serving 55 years, plus they tacked on another 15 years because he tried to escape from jail, so it's 70 years. As somebody stated that he was in solitary confinement for over 12 years, which I just think is barbaric. Looking at this, I'm thinking to myself, this person has served his time. I think it's time for, the powers to be to release him. One of the thoughts I thought is, is this really a matter for the city council? I don't know if it is or if it isn't, but I know one of my colleagues, Nelson, asked me to do this, so I did my due diligence, and I'm going to be happy to sign on to this tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Lisi.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I think that we've heard only support for this resolution this evening. All the constituents that came down to lend their voice to this issue have spoke in favor, and I think that my job as a representative of this city, I need to do what I can to represent their voices, their concerns to the best that I can. And if this resolution affords me the ability to amplify their voice and send a message through the different levels of government to the federal level, then I'm willing to put my name on a resolution. Which, as we know, resolutions are largely symbolic. They may not be persuasive in terms of getting the goal of the resolution achieved. But I'm willing to put my voice and my name behind that resolution in the effort to amplify the voices of all the constituents that came out to speak very passionately and favorably in support of the resolution.
Great, thank you very much. Councilor Valentin.
Thank you. So as part of the resolution and the wording in the resolution, one of the whereases is actually about how the Holyoke City councilors that are of Latino descent are all in favor of that, and that's no secret that it would be Gladys, Nelson, and I, the Three Musketeers. And so, of course, I'm here to speak in favor of it. I also want to echo what Nelson was speaking about regarding people really taking the time to have an open mind about this. I know that when this first came up in this chamber, one of the comments was, why is this pertaining to city council? And so I think the message has been clear from constituents, and I stand by them, obviously, in this scenario. And I also remind us that when we look at resolutions like this, that we should also think about not just what it means to vote in favor of it, but what it would mean if we don't vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilor LeBron Martinez.
Yes, first of all, I want to give kudos to Nelson for taking the leap on this. I gotta say that I attended the event where Jose came out and spoke in regards to his brother, and it's become a history. He became like a historian to me of what he knows, and it has been shared. And as I work with the youth in our community who are lacking a lot of our history, has brought in their thoughts. I'm getting calls, I'm getting emails, texts from these youth asking where would he be, in another time again so they can attend. I mean, some of us, myself, I felt that I thought I knew a lot more, and of my own history, and I learned so much from this gentleman, from sharing his history. So in addition, has opened our eyes, has created consciousness to our community to understand our struggles and where we come from. Thank you.
Great. Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, I'm very much in support of this resolution, and I want to thank Councilor Roman for taking the time to educate me about Oscar Lopez Rivera, and I really learned a lot about him and what it means to the Hispanic community, the Puerto Rican community in Holyoke. And I'm very much got a close tie to the Puerto Rican community here in Holyoke, and have for a number of years. I'm married to a beautiful Puerto Rican woman for the past 31 years, and understand a lot about the culture of the Puerto Rican people. And this is something that sending a message and being a representative of Holyoke and be representative of all citizens is important to me. and I am very much in favor of this resolution.
Great, thank you. Councilor Bresnahan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too am very much in support of this, and I know Mr. Councilor Roman's talking, but I do want to thank him because he educated me very much on this gentleman. I too am married to a woman born in Puerto Rico. I'd just like to say that next week, as an Irish person, we are celebrating the rise of the Easter Rising, which was when Ireland tried to free themselves from the persecutions of the Crown in England, 1916, April 24th to the 29th. The gentleman that led that charge was so sick, they had to sit him down on the chair where they executed him by gunfire. Now, in 1980, about 10 prisoners in Northern Ireland refused to be labeled as prisoners. They wanted political prisoner status, not criminals. So the Irish are very familiar with these causes that the Puerto Ricans share, and that's why the Irish, and quite frankly, the Latinos from Puerto Rico have, if you look back in the history, there's large traits of combinations of cultures and dance and song and music and all of that. Well, our cultures are beautiful cultures, and you wouldn't believe how fascinating it is for me to be married to a Puerto Rican, to see her culture and to have her celebrate my culture. It's wonderful. So I'm in full support of this. Thank you to Councilor Roman for taking me out and showing me this gentleman who I did not even know. I had no idea who he was, and I respect the man that stands up for his right because, again, from Irish descent, we have the troubles from 1960, for hundreds of years we've been fighting the Crown to be free, to have an independent country, okay? And that's what we still want that. It hasn't happened, and many people, thousands of people have died for that cause. So I commend you for coming down here. I commend Councilor Roman for supporting and presenting this bill and educating me. I learned something. Thank you very much. I'm in full support of this. I wish I got a shirt from Jose earlier, though, but, you know.
You got any in 2X? Councilor McGee.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I was talking while Dan was talking. I was just asking a question to Mr. Ronan and Josie with regards to the resolution and one of the whereases where it said, whereas you, Josie, and Gladys are signing off as the three members. I was just asking, could we add a whereas for the whole city council as a whole? And I was speaking for anyone. I know you have to make your vote, but is it more symbolic to say the full city council as a whole voted for this? Because to me, if you listen to everyone who's spoken, whether it was last night, I was watching it from home. I wasn't feeling well, so I'm sorry I missed it. But I watched it from home. And really, I haven't heard anything negative about this. It's all positive. And as you're seeing it, it's the community coming together as one, regardless of who you are. It's a community thing. And every time you turn on the news, sometimes it's always the bad things about Hawaii, bad. Here it's a positive. And yeah, it's just a resolution, but it's finally a community coming together saying, this is what we want. And we're asking you, the president, to please help us. That's a powerful message, and it's finally something positive. I mean, we have a lot of positive things, but this one is right. So if I pass to you.
Mr. Chairman. Yeah, and it's unifying.
Yes.
Which Lord knows we need in this world today.
I make a
Councilor Roman.
motion to make an amendment to the resolution to add, whereas the entire Holyoke City Council is in support of this resolution.
Great.
Second.
All right. All in favor of that amendment being added?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. I saw a hand over on this side.
I was going to speak to the amendment, but it's
Okay.
fine. It's already passed.
Any thoughts, comments? Anybody else wanted to be heard? Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the people for their education here. One thing I'd like to bring to everybody's attention is I took the time to go out and talk to 22 of my close friends, almost all of them Puerto Rican, all Latino. And of the 22, 21 of them had no idea who he was. Only one person knew. 16 flat out didn't know anything. 4 of the guys thought he was a baseball player that hadn't quite become famous yet. So the one thing, I think this is great. I've been torn about it for another reason, which I'll get to in a second. I am going to support it, but the Latino community has got to do as good a job educating within their own community as they've done here in the city council. There's a lot of people out there that don't know or aren't aware of these subjects. That's number one. Number two, I am very concerned with the amount of time that the city council is taking up with resolutions of this type and trying to involve ourselves, no matter how good the cause is, in global politics, international causes, matters best or maybe not best left to Washington, but a little out of our scope. I heard one gentleman here tonight mention the CRR rail company in Springfield, and that's where the Springfield City Council is spending their time. And it was in the newspaper today, they're bringing 175 jobs that they're starting to begin interviews for. And this is where this city council and the citizens of Holyoke have got to start channeling our energies into what we really need to do, which is bring jobs back to the city, bring industry back to the city, and start redeveloping this city. That's our job. Our job isn't in the United Nations, it's not in Washington, it's here in Holyoke.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Graney?
I agree very much with Councilor Sullivan, and I was not going to support this, but listening to all the people who have spoken tonight and listening to the arguments and so on and so forth, we should move on from this, but our city council should be involved in more things that are directly involved with this city, not national politics.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments? Councilor McGivern?
Thank you, Mr. President. There's been some wonderful, wonderful stories and some wonderful comments shared here this evening. And I'd just like to add one that I think I might bring it all together. About 100 miles from here in the towns of Lexington and Concord, a shot that was hurled around the world was fired, the beginning of the American Revolution. We are Americans. Oscar Lopez is an American. We're saying what our forefathers that founded this country said the same thing. We are not going to live up to who tells us how they're going to tax us, who tells us how they're going to rule our lives, who tells us how we're going to live our lives. And tonight we are joining with the residents of Holyoke in sending the same message, and join us in telling the president, please pardon this man, he's done his time, it's time to let him out and enjoy his freedom as we enjoy ours.
Councilor Roman?
I'd just like to close by saying I thank Councilor Sullivan and Graney for voting for this, and I just want to make it clear to the public that their comments as my colleagues do not in any way discredit them and their support for the Puerto Rican community. They're great, upstanding men, and I've talked with both of them, and I understand exactly where they're coming from. And just to speak to Councilor Sullivan's statement, I was one of those naive people when I first came to the city 6 years ago. I had no clue who this man was, and it was a great man by the name of Jose Bo, similar first name, different last name, who I entered his restaurant and I saw Oscar, and it has now become a fabric of the city of Holyoke to learn. And I think by us taking this stand as a city council, we are, and even by you speaking to those 22 men and women, you have now opened those doors. So I thank you for being a conduit for the Puerto Rican community to educating those individuals as to who Oscar Lopez was. So for that, I applaud you, Councilor Sullivan, and I thank you. And I thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, great. On that note, I believe all discussion has concluded, and we'll now take a vote on the resolution. This is, unless three members ask for a roll call, will be by voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So
We-
moved. Yes, Councilor LeBron Martinez?
I would have, that's okay. I would have preferred a roll call. I would have preferred that. Is that up? Can we
I'll
still do
second
it?
it.
Okay, three
Roll
members.
call. I didn't hear
Three
you.
members have asked for a roll call vote. Clerk will call the roll. A yes vote is in favor of adoption of item 31C, the resolution regarding the humanitarian matter of Oscar Lopez Rivera as amended. All in favor, clerk will call the roll. Yes vote is in favor, no vote is to deny it.
Leahy,
Yes.
LeBron Martinez,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee, McGivern,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Valentine,
Seat.
Bartley,
Yes.
Bresnahan,
Yes.
Graney,
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes,
Unanimous vote.
by your unanimous vote, you have adopted the resolution unanimously. Is there another suspension of rules?
If we're going to take Counselor Leahy's item up,
Oh,
I
is that ready?
I would defer to him before I take up another item out of order.
Public service matter ready? Okay. We have a committee report from the Committee on Public Service, and I'm sorry, ma'am, I butcher your first name.
Intilla.
Intida, thank you. Thank you for your patience with me. Asaza Figueroa, who is a nominee to the Planning Board. This is to confirm her appointment. That is not on the committee jacket for whatever reason. I was at that committee hearing, so I know you did approve it. Motion to remove from committee?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to remove Ms. Asaza Figueroa's appointment to the Planning Board from committee. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. This now stands before the full City Council. The Committee on Public Service, to whom was referred a Public Service Committee review of the mayoral appointment of Intia Asaza Figueroa to the Planning Board. Having considered the same, recommend that the appointment be confirmed. Councilors Leahy, Bresnahan, Rainey, Valentin, and LeBron Martinez.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll make a motion to confirm the appointment.
Motion's been made and seconded to receive and adopt the committee report and to confirm the appointment to the Planning Board. Under discussion, Councilor Leahy.
Yeah, very briefly. First of all, I'd like to thank you and the council for letting me to take this out of order. I see Intia behind us, so I wanted to get this moving. She came in front of us last week, and she comes highly recommended for Marcos for the Planning Board. She has extensive experience in urban planning and knowing the zoning laws, and she actually has a degree from Harvard University on urban planning. She has prior experience in the city. She was on the Historic Commission for some time. She was born in Holyoke. She is a go-getter. I mean, every person that was at the meeting the other night realizes these are the type of people we want to keep in Holyoke. We certainly don't want to lose a person like this. She lives up on Cherry Street. I'm just trying to think of anything else. I'm trying to keep it quick. That's pretty much it. I think she's going to be a wonderful asset to our city.
Great.
To the Planning Board.
Councilor Valentin.
So that it was a great meeting and a great conversation with Intilla, and just wanted to add, because I don't think Councilor Leahy mentioned that, she's currently part of the Historical Commission, and so this body has already appointed her to something, and so just to clarify, at this point, it's regarding the Planning Board and that role. But just a reminder that this body unanimously appointed her for the
She's
Historic.
staying on historic, do you know? Are you doing this now but not historic, or? Okay, that's what I thought.
Correct.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. And just to speak very much in favor of Intilla's appointment, thank you.
Yeah. And I was at the committee hearing, and she did a wonderful job, so I'd be happy to support her. Councilor Tallman.
I'm very much in support of Intia, too. I met her here at the, actually for the Historical Commission, and also the other night for the interview for this position, and very knowledgeable, very well educated, and back in Holyoke. I'm very grateful to have you back here in Holyoke with your knowledge and your ambition. So thank you so much.
Okay. Any other thoughts? All right. Councilor LeBron Martinez.
I also in support of Atia. If I'm not mistaken, she has her roots of her father or family member who was Isasa, Orlando Isasa, a great activist here in the city who worked very strongly on this. If I'm not mistaken, I think she's related to the Isasa family. Very activist person who was one of my mentors and my foundation of my leadership. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts, comments? All in favor of adopting the committee report and confirming the appointment?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Motion to suspend the necessary rules, take up item number 31A out of order.
Motion's been made and seconded to suspend the rules to take up item 31A out of order. This is the matter regarding the Development and Government Relations Committee regarding the TPP trade deal resolution. All in favor of suspending the rules for that purpose?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item now is before the body, item number 31A, Committee on Development and Government Relations, to whom was referred an order that the City Council consider adopting the following resolution in opposition of the Federal Trans-Pacific TPP trade deal. Have considered the same, recommend that the order be adopted. Councilors Bartley, McGivern, Tallman, and Roman.
Motion receive the committee report and adopt the recommendation.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to receive and adopt the committee report and that it be, the resolution be approved. Under discussion, Counselor Bartley.
Yeah, so Rebecca spoke to the issue last night. You heard from Fiore a little bit earlier tonight on it, and I think some of the main, Rebecca went through 10 of the main points last night and did a good job of summing it up. And so the committee kind of heard her out. The overarching question is, what's this got to do with Holyoke? But I think that for the bulk of the committee, it was basically, if a city councilor wants to file an order, and there's some, even if it's a tangential relationship to Holyoke, and I think there's more than that for TPP, I think we have to, I think we certainly have to respect it, which I think we all did, and then we have to hear her out, which we all did. I happen to support it. I think really the crux of it was some of the history of Holyoke's strong manufacturing base. That's really kind of what did it for me. And again, it's sending a message to our. We just sent a message to the President of the United States, didn't we? Well, we did that, so now we're sending a message to our congressional delegation relative to this one, and we're hopeful that the 11 members we have in Congress will listen to us. And I'll defer, if I may, Mr. President, to the maker. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Counselor Lisi.
Thank you. So yes, there are a number of whereases in this resolution that basically ask our state delegation, our congressional delegation at the federal level to oppose the passage of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. I agree with a lot of what I heard Councilor Sullivan say earlier, where we need to be focusing on ways of bringing jobs and business to Holyoke. And in my opinion, the national politics are going to set the landscape for what we can do locally. We have a strong manufacturing history here in Holyoke. We've been working really hard at getting some of that manufacturing base back. However, in the 90s, Clinton passed NAFTA, which worked to create free trade agreements across North America, which really sent jobs outside of the U.S. to Canada and to Mexico in particular. And now the TPP looks to open up free trade agreements across the Pacific Ocean into China and other countries. And what this does effectively is creates an unlevel playing field for our small U.S.-based businesses to compete, and for U.S. workers to compete with large multinational corporations who could take advantage of countries that have weaker environmental protections, weaker labor rights, weaker worker rights and wages. And that will just work to continue to send good-paying manufacturing jobs overseas to other countries where the cost of production can be reduced. And when we start reducing the cost of production overseas, what we're effectively doing is driving down the wages in the U.S. We're driving down the environmental protections that we have in the U.S., and it creates a race to the bottom, essentially. So I want to see good manufacturing jobs come back to Holyoke. I see this as it's the other side of the coin for our economic revitalization. One part of that coin is the creative economy and the investments that we've been making. The other part is going to be bringing a strong manufacturing base as new technologies become what is that? Sorry. As new technologies come into being, I think that we have an opportunity to bring some of those manufacturing jobs back into the city of Holyoke. So with that, I want to be as brief as possible. I did send around a lot of information in advance of the committee hearing. I hope you all had a chance to review it. I am happy to field questions, but really this is about asking our U.S. congressional delegation to oppose the passage of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, keep manufacturing jobs, keep worker wages strong, and in the U.S. Thank you.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Counselor Graney. Okay. Not hearing any other, anybody seeking to have a debate? Just now, is there 3 members that want to have this by roll call vote, or are we just going to go with a voice vote? Might as well just say now.
Roll call.
So we can avoid a double process. Okay. 3 members having asked for a roll call vote, the clerk will call the roll. This is on item number 31A, a resolution of the committee report in opposition to the TPP trade deal. A yes vote is in favor of the committee report, which is to oppose it, so therefore you're opposed to TPP. A no vote is to not adopt the resolution, okay? Clerk will call the roll.
Leahy,
A yes vote's in favor of it.
Adopting the committee report which opposes the TPP deal. So a yes is to oppose the
Okay,
deal.
yes.
LeBrun Martinez,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee, McGivern,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tolman,
Yes.
Valentine,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Bresnahan,
Yes.
Graney,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes,
unanimous vote.
Thank you all.
you're welcome. By your unanimous vote, you have adopted Resolution 31A unanimously of the members present. Any other rule suspensions, excuse me, strike that, rule suspension, well, yeah, it is a rule suspension, on.
Are we still under
items of or-
suspension?
Not yet, we'd have to, you want to do 31C
Yeah.
or B? Is it B?
And D, or sorry,
B.
B and D.
No, not
B, sorry, B.
Not B.
Not B?
No, it's D and E.
Is it D and E?
Yep, D and E, please. Motion to suspend rules, take up 31 D and E.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to suspend rules to take up items 31D and 31E as a package, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
As a package. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item 31D, 31E, now before the body. Let me read these. 31D. The Committee on Development and Government Relations, to whom was referred an order that the city hereby accepts sections 3 to 7 inclusive of Chapter 44B of the General Laws, otherwise known as the Massachusetts Community Preservation Act, by approving a surcharge on real property for the purposes permitted by said act, including the acquisition, creation, preservation of open space, the acquisition, preservation, rehabilitation, and restoration of historic resources, the acquisition, creation, and preservation, rehabilitation, restoration of land for recreational use, the acquisition, creation, preservation, and support of community housing, and the rehabilitation and restoration of such open space and community housing that is acquired or created as provided under said act. That the amount of said surcharge on real property shall be 1.5% of annual real estate tax levy against real property commencing in fiscal year 2018. And the city hereby accepts the following exemptions for such surcharge permitted under Section 3E of said act. Property owned and occupied as a domicile by any person who qualifies for low-income housing or low or moderate income senior housing in the city as defined in Section 2 of said act. 100,000 of the value of each taxable parcel of residential real property and 100,000 of value of each taxable parcel of Class 3 commercial property and Class 4 industrial property as defined in Section 2A of Chapter 59. Upon approval of the City Council, the actions of the body shall be submitted for the acceptance by the voters at the next regular municipal or state election. Have considered the same, recommend that that order be adopted. 31E. The Committee on Development and Government Relations, to whom was referred an order that the city invite Mayor Morse, representatives of the Community Preservation Coalition, the city's legal department, and local Holyoke CPA advocates to provide information about how the CPA functions and answer questions regarding the adoption of the Community Preservation Act. Also, extend invitations to Representative Vega and Senator Humison to attend this meeting if their schedules allow. Have considered the same, recommend that this order has been complied with. This comes to us recommended by all 5 members of the Development and Government
So a
Relations
motion to
Committee,
receive-
Councilors Bartley, McGivern, Tallman, Sullivan, and Roman.
Motion receive the committee report, adopt the committee report, please.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to receive and adopt both committee reports. Under discussion, Councilor Bartley.
Okay, I've got 9 pages of notes here, which we are not going to go through. We had at least an hour and a half last night on CPC. Now, we got to give, first of all, thanks to the public, several of whom you heard from tonight. We had a good, probably 8 or 9 speakers last night on this issue. But the primary speaker, however, was gentleman who's executive director of the Community Preservation Coalition out of Boston, a guy named Mr. Stuart Saganor, who came and actually is very complimentary towards, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, very complimentary towards the City Hall and this room in particular. So I thought that was heartwarming. He said it was probably one of the grandest city halls in which he's entered. Now, this body, he's traveled more or less from one end of the Commonwealth to the other, kind of being a bit of a troubadour on Community Preservation Act. So I thought that meant a lot, and I thought this body and the public at large would like to know that. So the Community Preservation Act, there are, I've kind of going back and forth on how best way to present this. Whether the best way is to have you ask questions of me, because we were pretty much surrounded by, we had the 5 committee members last night, we had 3 or 4 other city councilors who stayed for most, if not all of it, and I understand that most everybody else was kind of watching the hearing last night. So Mr. Saganor went through a PowerPoint presentation for 15, 20 minutes, answered questions for a good hour. We spoke about the pros, the cons, we went into all the details of the Community Preservation Act. I think the bottom line is this: this is all part of state law. So this offer, if you will, we put before the voters of Holyoke, if we approve it, in November, Mr. President. So there is a pro forma language in the state law, shall the city of Holyoke accept the Community Preservation Act, Chapter 44B, Sections 3 through 7. Below that, Mr. President, is going to be kind of the technical language, if you will, that's supposed to be drawn up by the city solicitor. It was our suggestion last night, Mr. President, that language not just be drawn up be drafted by a city solicitor and approved by the city council before it goes on any ballot. And that's our general practice, as Councilor McGivern rightly pointed out last night. And I don't know if that requires a separate order, but we can speak with city solicitor about that. But I don't want that language just being written without our prior approval. And frankly, I'd like to have it be submitted by the city solicitor, sent to committee, preferably the DGR committee, so we can sort of look it over as opposed to being here on a Tuesday night. We can look it over rationally and kind of, I'm sure it'll be fine, but I just want to make sure it sounds good.
On that point, suspend the rules to see if the law department is amenable to that suggestion?
If you want to do it, why don't we just hold on? Well, why don't we just hold off on Mr. President? So I just want to hit the 3 main points on this if we can. So it's the under state law. There's several options. So the option that the committee thought for a surcharge is the 1.5% option, which is you're better off asking questions if I try to explain it. It's 1.5, which is kind of a middle ground on this. We also suggested 3 exemptions. I think there are 4 under Section 3E. We suggested 3 exemptions to this. One of the exemptions is for exempt persons of low mod income and senior housing. That will require a separate application to the assessor's office. A second exemption is to deduct $100,000 from residential property taxes. A third exemption is to deduct $100,000 from commercial properties. So that's the kind of language that would kind of fill out the technical part to which I referred a minute ago that the solicitor would draft for the voters. I think also it's important that we try to do our best to get this on our city website, to get this mailed out to the citizens. It is a ballot question. We had the experience a few years ago with another ballot question that just, it was mailed way too late and it was way too cumbersome. We're hopeful that this will be a 1-page kind of summary, Mr. President. And then it's up to the voters. Voters to educate themselves. There is a group in Holyoke that is supportive of this. We heard from the president, I think, of the group tonight. I think that's her title. Tonight, we heard from her, and we also heard from another member of that committee. So there are I mean, the committee felt, I mean, I heard a lot of positive things about it. I don't know how I'm going to vote, Mr. President, but I think from where I was probably, 6, 7 months ago, when I really wasn't educated on this, I've become more educated. I certainly see a lot of benefits to this. The cities and I've said it here before, if we don't go to Boston with our hat in hand, we are down the tubes, pretty much. And this is a way for Holyoke to possibly be a little more self-sustaining. I've already heard a lot of people, they've called me and criticized me for my, I'm not saying I'm voting on it, but you can see a lot of the benefits to it. As far as revenue to the city, it looks like it probably raised somewhere in the neighborhood with a match from Boston, probably in the $500,000, $600,000 range. The average homeowner probably looking at between $20 and $30 for a surcharge on their property tax bill. And I think everybody in this room is a homeowner. So we're basically taxing ourselves. So with that, I hope I hit most of the high points. Really got to credit again Mr. Saganor, Mr. Knox for coming out to run the slideshow, for all those who brought their perspective last night, and that'll do it for me. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, thank you. Last night was an excellent meeting. And quite frankly, I think entering City Hall last night, I was opposed to this. But the gentleman who gave the presentation from Boston did a fantastic job. And there was a bunch of things that I just didn't know. First of all, that every time a person goes to the Registry of Deeds and files something, there's a fee associated with that gets tacked on. And there's a body of money down in Boston. And once a year, they distribute that money to people who, cities and towns that are a part of this. Holyoke is not a part of this. Northampton up the street is a part of this. And so last year they gave 30% out. So that's 30% of the money from people from Holyoke that we're kind of missing out on. It's like a 401k plan. Someone's matching you 30%, but if you're not putting 30% into it, you're losing the money. Some of the other things I was thinking about, the reasons why I wasn't for it, is just for the fact that quite frankly, we should have line items in their budget for capital improvements, and we're not doing that. And one of the things we have to do is live within our means. However, this is a kind of a savings that we could use for many different reasons. And the PowerPoint went into extensive detail on the different projects we could do. As David said, the average homeowner is going to be paying about $23. But we're also going to be getting 30% back. It could go up to 50% back from the state. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think $23 is something people can afford, but not only can they afford it, they will see the benefits. It's a tangible type of thing, and this is why I'm supporting it. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Councilor Valentin.
Thank you. I wanted to speak in favor of the CPA. As I said last night at the committee meeting, I was in favor of this the first time we started having the conversation when Councilor Alexander was here, and Councilor Lisi Alexander and I actually filed orders about this in the past, and I'm happy to see that a group of volunteers here in Holyoke really took this on and made this happen to where we are today. So I want to thank them all publicly for that. I want to thank my constituents who were part of this movement since the beginning. People like Daphne Board, Susan Van Pelt, who really have been working hard on this. And I know that they've been reaching to all of us individually, reaching out and kind of educating us on this and the importance of it. I think one of the things that stood out the most for me from the gentleman's presentation last night was that he spoke about a letter to the editor that was sent where a woman said that she was a teacher in a city or town that had adopted CPA. And in the letter, she wrote about all the projects that she had been able to have happen for the city or town, about acres of land that she bought and beachfront property and fixing the park and the neighborhood. And it was all phrased in a way as if it was all her, and it was basically because of what CPA had been bringing to the community. And I thought that was a great example of why something like this would be beneficial to the city. So I urge us all to vote in support of this tonight. Some people have asked why the 1.5%. In the presentation last night, the gentleman shared with us that 82% of the cities and towns that have voted on the 1.5% have been successful with that rate. Most of the other percentages have been around 50% success rate. So definitely huge proof that number is one that has been successful when this comes onto ballots. And again, we are voting here tonight not for you to make a statement of if you're in support of CPA or not. This is a vote to put it on the ballot for the voters and the residents of the city who are our constituents to be able to let us know what their thoughts are on it. So just to be very clear, for folks that are watching at home or people that are here that are not as familiar as what we've been talking about, especially last night in committee, the vote here tonight is to allow this to be on the ballot, not necessarily if we are in favor or not. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I, like some of my colleagues, have not made a decision whether I'm for or against this act. I do have many questions. The CPA was created to allow towns to make that decision, put it out to the voter. I guess if the state thought it was such a great idea, they probably would have made a statue of it and mandated it to all the communities. Instead, they thought perhaps some communities are better fit for this program than other communities are. I mean, when you look at, and I printed out all the towns that, I did my due diligence. We only got this presentation to the city council last night, by the way. It's actually 24 hours right now. So I printed it out. We have some communities that are only a half % charge or a 1% charge. I don't know who came up with this 1.5. I was at the presentation. I saw the success rate. I don't really know what the term success rate means. The first I heard about this CPA was October 2015 via an email where I got a 2-page document that I got again last night. Today, as many of you got, we all got over 100 pages from the assessor's office going into greater detail. Again, perhaps I'm being the devil's advocate. I'm all about letting the voters have their vote. But I just think that for us to go out as city councilors, that, there should be some more information presented to us. We sent a bed and breakfast back. We tabled a bed and breakfast that night, or the committee did, I was here, but a bed and breakfast was tabled, but we're willing to put a charge on people that have worked multiple jobs to buy a house. Some of the folks that spoke that evening, gave their addresses. I went to get their field cards. I mean, one of the members that spoke was going to pay $12. Another one of the properties will be exempt because they don't even reach that 100,000 threshold. Has anybody talked to the Pyramid Corporation that pays us $8 million, almost $700,000 a year in taxes? I mean, is this a good business practice? I'm not against it. I'm just saying that has the business community who's going to be taxed on this when they're already at a very high tax rate, one of, if not the highest in the state of Massachusetts, we're going to hit them with another tax? This is what it is. And again, put it out to the voters, but I'm saying it will not be on the ballot till November. We had an hour-and-a-half presentation last night, and we're just going to rush right through it. I think we need to vet this topic out. We need to do our due diligence, review the documents that we all got at 3:30 this afternoon from the assessor's office, and let's talk more about it. Let's have a presentation to the business community, the bar owners down the street. Let's invite a bill from the Pyramid Corporation in. Let's talk about that. Let's see how that would impact them. I've gotten calls from homeowners. I'm unable to answer their questions, and they're telling me they're against it. We had a gentleman that spoke that night that was against it. I just think that if it's not going to be on the ballot till November, we've got May, we've got June, we have a meeting in August. That'll give the city clerks plenty of time to get this question on the ballot. Why is it 1.5? Because 82% of the communities that do this have a success rate. Well, then our neighboring towns, Agawam, West Springfield, they're at 1%. Chicopee doesn't even do it. But one of the poorest communities in the state of Massachusetts, we're going to put a 1.5% tax increase on private homeowners and businesses in the city of Holyoke. So a guy that owns a business and lives in City of Holyoke, he's going to get double whacked. I just think that I have too many questions, and I'm all about letting the people vote on it. I have no issue with that. Let them vote on it. But if any of you can go out to the public and give a dissertation on this whole topic, I'd be impressed, because I sat through that presentation. I did my best. I spoke to Josh tonight briefly before I came in here. I went back and forth with Stuart via email all day today to get a better sense of this, and I'm just not comfortable talking to the people that are questioning me, you know, about this process, that I just don't, I think if there's a committee out there, let them do the time, let them walk the streets, let them get on the path. So we get calls back, like, from the community saying, you know what, I don't like this. I'm not for it. I mean, this is kind of the Swiss cheese budget that we got. This is just a way to kind of plug some holes. You know, there was talks about, you know, we're going to have a committee meeting on the finances. Councilor Jordan got 5 names to the mayor in January. No meeting. So I mean, this is certainly an out-of-the-box approach to the financial dire straits we are in. But I just recommend that we tread lightly. Again, there was a gentleman on Dwight Street that wants to put a bed and breakfast in the city of Holyoke in a beautiful Victorian home, and we tabled it because there wasn't enough information. We get an hour-and-a-half presentation from the CPA. The CPC is a committee, by the way, of boards that are all appointed by the mayor. So how many projects do you think the city council might actually have their teeth into? I mean, there's just a lot of issues that not all the communities in the state of Massachusetts have done it, and some of them have lower rates than what we're proposing for one of the poorest. So I'm going to make a motion later on after everyone speaks to table it. I'm hopeful that, again, let the public have it. But we did have referendum questions on the ballot that were surpassed in the past, even though the majority of the citizens of Holyoke voted against certain programs. Still went through. So I just encourage us to tread lightly, think about it. There was only a handful of us at that meeting last night. I mean, I think we need more information. If we raise $460,000 on the backs of the city of Holyoke taxpayers, we're going to get 136 back. I mean, why don't we just, I mean, $460,000 we're going to get off homeowners, middle-class homeowners that are working their butts off because the dream was to buy a house. Now we're just going to hit them again. We're going to nickel and dime everybody out of the city of Holyoke. Let's get more information.
Councilor McGee.
Thank you. Like I said earlier, I wasn't here last night simply because I wasn't feeling well, and I did text in some other people to tell them that. As I was watching on TV, when my orders came up, and I thank Councilor McGivern for saying, you know, recommend it without an opinion, simply so we can discuss it. So my first issue is procedural, which is what's before us is 1.5 for the CPA, which, as I was saying in the back, Mr. President, if we're always following procedure, really that order doesn't exist. We have to make an amendment in committee, or we'd have to probably do it now, and I'll defer to you on Robert's rules and stuff. But really, what happened was, prior to these going to committee, Councilor Roman made an amendment to his 1.5 to say up to 3%. So that what went to committee was up to 3%, 0.5%, and 1%. To be talked about. What was acted on was an order from Mr. Roman for 1.5%, which really doesn't exist because we amended that prior to going into committee. So that, I think, procedurally has to be addressed on how we amend it and correct it, so that way we're not in violation of state rules and everything else. Why did I file my orders? Well, you know, I got to compliment Mr. Knox. Mr. Knox reached out to me right away. Sat down with me, and it actually is a plethora of information with regards to this issue. If you look at just the town over, the town of South Hadley, they came out with a report, and this is from the chair, Nicole Stanford. Over the past year, the Open Space Committee has explored the potential benefits and costs associated with the adoption of the Community Preservation Act. They took over a year to review this thing and figure out the pros and cons, and then they give a breakdown of all the communities that are involved, as well as the tax rates or the estimated cost to an average South Hadley homeowner. And then they say, you know, a surcharge, if it was 1%, without any exemption, is $38. Yearly cost, 1.5, 58%. Or $58, 2% would be $77, 3% would be $115, but then if you add in the $100,000 exemption, those numbers go down. So they give a nice detailed breakdown to everybody as to the potential cost going forward. For me, I added my language in, the 0.5 and 1%, simply because to start the debate, what number should we really be talking about? All we were given is, if we went with Councilor Romans, is 1.5, then that's all we really talk about and what exemptions. Here, I try to open it up to say, look what South Hadley did. Look at everything, pick and choose what fits, and then come out with a final product. I honestly think the CPA is a really good program in the sense of, although it's a tax, and really what I wanted to debate in the committee as well as with everyone here is, it is another tax. You're going to have a sewer tax. That's increasing. We all know it. How it increases and what we do with it is for debate. So here's a tax. You have a sewer tax. Based on the growth in the city, we always said we have to levy ceiling. How are we going to shift the rate again, which then is another tax on the residential, because we're definitely afraid of going over the 40% for the business. Well, now you're adding 1.5, 1%, whatever it is, towards the business. Shouldn't we have brought in the Chamber of Commerce and said, hey, look, we potentially are going to do this, although there's this 40% rate that we keep hovering about and we're trying to avoid it, by adding this on, is the business really going to be upset with it? Will they negotiate with 1% better for them? We didn't do that. So I want a dialogue as to this. Do I want it as a ballot question? Absolutely. That's why I filed the orders. But I wanted an ongoing discussion with everybody to see what works best. In theory, you know, if you look at the numbers just from South Hadley, and I have the one from West Springfield as well, but South Hadley says, you know, for the average, what you can bring in, $202,000 with the exemption for residential, and then you add in the community preservation match to that, which then the match becomes the question. And as Stuart said last night, if I'm saying his name correctly, is, you know, they're committed to a percentage, but that percentage can change. The more cities and towns that get involved in this, the more they take from the pot. So although it sounds like we're going to get, you know, 300, 400,000, now that can dwindle. And I bring the example of the Quinn bill. We were told X, we're paying for the whole boat. That's probably not going to happen here, but that has to be addressed. Then the question becomes is how you allocate it out. 10% is required within the 3 pools. Then over that, how do you allocate the other 70% out? That wasn't even discussed. So for me, I did miss the meeting. I did give notice to it to some other people, and I apologize. I didn't think it was going to come out after an hour in order to then act on it. So for me, although I'm supportive of it, I don't know if 1.5, 1% is the right number. And 2, did we even talk to the chamber or the business community as to the impact to them, which I wanted to do, and that's what I was going to bring up last night. So for me, I would like a ballot question. Can we just talk about it a little more before we finally act on it? Because, you know, it is going to bring money in that we normally don't see, because remember, when we apply for grants, we're competing against other communities. We don't always get them. Here is some, whatever percentage is guaranteed money coming in that we can use to fill the holes. Not going to fill every hole, but it's going to help. So for me, that does make sense, because if we don't get that type of money, we're looking to bonding, which then is a tax on everyone anyways. So to me, it's kind of like a bonding, but a little better. But really, 1 hour, no offense to the committee, they did a good job. We can go a little more. That's just my opinion.
Sure, thank you. It should be noted, the current item that we are acting on is your order, so to your point about the deference that you're seeking, that is the committee report 31D is your order, as I'm looking at it. Yours is attached here, formerly agenda item 24 from the March 3rd meeting 2016. That was referred to DGNR, just so you know. So, yeah, sure. I'm looking at, on my committee jacket, Todd McGee. So my, I know you didn't, but for whatever reason, the one that's attached to it, as a matter of fact, you just laid out the different options. And in fact, one was for 0.5, one was 1. You just articulated all the different options that we had. You didn't specify any particular number. But I'm just saying, for whatever reason, yours happened to be the one they picked to do this. So I'm not disagreeing. Yeah, I know, and I'm looking at 31D.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
31B in our agenda is actually Councilor McGee's. 31D is supposed to be the one that I filed, so that's, I think there's a,
Then they attached the wrong order to this
yes.
committee
Yep,
report.
yep, we're supposed to be taking up, yeah.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Just to clarify, because Councilor McGee was asking about the chamber and the business, just to let everyone know, the CPA for Holyoke Group has actually met with the chamber, with their, I think it's like the Government Affairs Committee that they have. So just to put that out there, that is information that has been spoken with them as well.
Did they come out with usually they come out with a letter saying they're for or against something? Did they say, make any statement yet?
I don't have those details, but if we want to suspend the rules and allow
I don't
anyone-
want to go there, in my opinion, because we could go into this all night on pros and cons. I want to look on the information we have this evening. Next up to speak was Councilor Graney.
Just briefly, 1.5 increase on the annual real estate tax levy. It's a property tax is what it is, and it's an annual property tax. And if the value of the property goes up, I would assume that the tax goes up. And this is a forever type of thing. Once again, we're going to be asking the residents to vote on a tax increase on their own property. I mean, that's, I think we need as much information as we can on the entire situation. Now, like I say, I haven't got a heck of a lot of information on it. All I know, it's a real estate tax. It's assessed on the on the taxpayer on a real estate tax. And that's a dangerous thing when we have, the taxes that we have out there already on people.
If it helps too, I just wanted to point out that one of my concerns from constituents, and again, I speak to Ward 6, is I had a couple people speak in favor to me of it, but I had a number that spoke against, but more, I'm getting a lot of people saying, I would like to understand this more. I know I have a Ward 6 neighborhood meeting coming up on April 27th. My plan was to bring this up at that time to get some more information, so I don't know if we can squeeze any of that into this course of things. But Councilor Roman, you're the next speaker.
Thank you, Mr.
Councilor
President,
Lisi.
and thank you to my colleagues. So I'd like to first thank the chairman and the committee actually for being thorough and the presenter to address a few topics that were mentioned. Yes, the community panel that will be formulated with this plan and proposal, and I feel like that was one of my biggest questions as well, is what would that panel look like? Yes, there would be 5 representatives of 5 different commissions, but there's 4 additional members that we as the council get to dictate who those are. One, and all of the recommendations are recommendations to the city council. We are the final approving recommender for those funds and how they're distributed. And to answer another one of Councilor McGee's questions, yes, there's a 10% allocation to those 3 areas. The other 70% can only be used for those 3 areas within that pot of money, and that would come out of the recommendation, and we as a council still could do that. I'm in favor of this, and I know that's not what we're speaking to, is just getting it on the ballot, because again, where I do agree with my colleagues, Councilor Bresnahan, Councilor McGee, and everyone else, we do have a financial issue with our budget. We have to take that under control. I am one of those 5 committee members that will continue to advocate and lobby the mayor to call our committee together. My initial order, and I'll bring it back to this one, was to have a balanced budget and to have those conversations before April 1st. We have now passed that deadline to have those conversations around our budget. We, have all of these financial issues around our budget. But when bond counsel was here, I was reminded around the fact that, yes, we need to address that budget issue, but another critical thing was around revenue generating streams that we need to increase in the city. This CPA proposal is actually assessed on the average tax bill. So not the overall taxes, the tax bill. So for example, and I know a lot of you receive this information, I've too have gotten constituents from, and you've heard some of them tonight eloquently speak, Paul and Audra Bissett from Springdale Ingleside neighborhood. They were the ones most opposed to this, and you heard them tonight say that now they're in support of this. And it was that fact of breaking down that issue. When we compare the Holyoke proposal at 1.5 to other gateway cities like Fall Rivers and Long Meadow, the average will come out to the same. And even comparing it to West Springfield, the $23 proposal that Holyoke's proposing to West Springfield's 1% will be $22 or $23. It's very comparable. And with regards to the presentation we had yesterday with the gentleman, there were a great example he gave is a lot of communities that utilize CPA, if you go on their website, have to acknowledge and really advocate for leveraging of those funds. So when you go out and do those matching programs and grants around community restoration, open space and park renovation, and housing, you have to advocate and say, how are you going to grant and get some more leverage? But when we're talking about things like quality of life issues like Pouliot Pool, or when we're discussing Valley Arena Park, and all of these projects, a comment was made yesterday that, hey, these are just drops in the bucket at $125,000 to fix even Susie Park in South Holyoke. But guess what? If we can't even get a bond through, and we're still waiting on a bond, or if we can't get through a community block grant funds, because that's dwindling every year, we need to create a revenue stream that's dedicated to these three areas, because those are quality of life issues that, yes, may be a drop in the bucket, but I can tell you to my constituents and residents, that drop in the bucket is life-changing and impactful immediately. So for me, getting this out there, and where I agree with my esteemed colleague and you, Mr. President, my ward meetings, and I have them in different areas, my residents do want to know more. They're truly like, what is this? How does this work? But I feel like the group has done a great job at explaining this to me, and we need to do a great effort in educating our constituents. And with one final note to my colleagues to kind of ease their minds, I also agree with everything that was said on the Quinn bill. This statutory item is separate from line item structure, if you will, of the state budget. So this was a statute that was created, it's separate, it cannot be removed unless the legislator removes that law for this creation of these funds. So unlike the Quinn bill, this is guaranteed. And yes, let's say one day it goes away. The gentleman was very key, because I do applaud my counselors who said, what if this goes away next year? What if all of a sudden the legislature says we're getting rid of this? He said, because he was so confident that this wouldn't go away, he would then fight to have the legislator allow us as a city to revocate, to say we want out then. If the state's not in it, we want as a city to be out. That's how sure that he knew that this money would be there and that we would get this money. And I think even if let's say the matching amount is at its minimum, $460,000, I mean, if we can't get a bond and we have a park or a pool or things that are damaged, just on the recreation side alone, or the stained glass windows, we should give the residents the right to consider that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I just want to make a few brief points. Number one, it's a ballot initiative, so we're really just putting the issue before the voters with this vote this evening. I think a lot of the phone calls that I got that were in opposition were because people felt that we were voting on a new tax tonight. And it seemed, as some comments from the audience earlier, as though we were like rushing through on something. But really, we're putting something on the ballot. There's plenty of time for debate and discussion and education. I think another key point is that we've been paying into this fund. We've been paying into the trust for several years now without the ability to draw off those benefits and those dollars to serve our community. I think that the analogy that Councilor Leahy made earlier in terms of like the 401k match is like the perfect analogy. It's something that we're all familiar with. You need to pay to play. We get a higher return on our dollar once we make that investment, but we don't get anything, and we don't even get to we don't get the benefits of our own dollars going into this trust if we're not going to be adopting this statute. And then finally, I think another way to think of this item is it really is like the CDBG money at the state level as opposed to the federal level. Community Development Block Grant money has been coming from the federal government, and that revenue stream is getting smaller and smaller and smaller year after year as our country goes further and further into deficit spending. But we can't deficit spend at the local level, so we need to figure out ways of generating local revenue streams that are independent of really the state and federal revenues that we've become dependent on. And so I really would like to see us become more independent and have more autonomy over how we're going to be using funds for recreation, open space, historic preservation, housing, And really, if we're able to bring in these, if we're able to create the tax, we're then able to accelerate and amplify the amount of dollars that we're able to draw off of that fund. And I think that's really what's in our interest at this point.
Any other discussion? Councilor Bresnahan.
Briefly, again, I'm not saying that the voters shouldn't have a say on this, but we need to talk about this in greater detail. Has anybody reached out to the assessor's office? Because what happens when people come in for abatements, guess where they have to go? The mayor didn't fill a position in that office recently, so now they're down to 3 employees. So where does the abatements go? The exemptions, the same place that the veterans go, the same place that the elderly go, and every year they have to go there. Let's call in the assessors and say, how many abatements do you do a year? How many exemptions do you do a year? That conversation never took place. Can you handle the workload? Can we use some money to fund a part-time person just to handle this workload? Nope, that conversation didn't happen. The other thing that I want to be sure is that we're allowing a vote that impacts only a percentage of the citizens of Holyoke. Everybody can be for it, but you know what? Not everybody's paying for it. The people that are paying for it are the business owners and the homeowners. Everybody has a right to talk, that's fine. Everyone has a right to vote. But let's be clear about this. If you've got a $500,000 house, you're paying for it. If you've got a $99,000 house, you're not, and you're reaping the benefits of it. So I haven't talked to enough of the people that own homes or businesses. I spoke to a handful today because, again, the meeting was last night, and I'm all for it. But look at the study that South Hadley did. Has anybody reached out to communities like New Bedford and talked to the business owners out there? I don't think they're too thrilled with this project. So we've done no due diligence except for the committee meeting, and I mean that in a respectful way. I'm sure many of you have. But we haven't seen enough information. I'm not asking not to vote for this. I'm just saying let's put the brakes on. There's no rush. It can be on the ballot in November. So we can, on our August meeting that we have every August, we can say, let the ballot have it. That gives us 4 months of study. We can do it in May. We can do it in June. We're just kind of rushing right here, and I don't like that. And there's no guarantee that the state, if the money disappears from the state trust fund, who knows what happens? The dam breaks. I don't know. I mean, I just, issues that we need to really talk about are the streetlights we need, and this money's not going to help us with streetlights. So I respectfully request that we just back up a little bit, take a little bit more time on this.
I'm going to recognize Councilor McGivern for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. President. It sounds like there are some questions looking for additional information, and I respect that because last year I asked for additional information before we put the ballot questions for the charter issues on the ballot, and everybody listened to me. The $100,000 exemption, I think, is what we have to get out to the voters. The $100 exemption is off of the value of the property, and then we start applying the numbers, whichever number is chosen. The 1.5 is what the committee is putting forward. There's a senior exemption, there's the low-income exemption, there's other exemptions that can be applied, which could make sense. The sad part is we're being held hostage by the state. This is block grant money. This is what we had for years, block grant money that came in that we used to apply in this ways across the board. The federal government gave it, they funneled it through the state, and it came to us. The state's having they don't get the block grant money from the federal government. They're taxing through the registrar's office, or the money that is the fees that they're applying, taking that money and putting it to good projects, but forcing the communities to get their share of the money to come up with a percentage of the CPA itself. It's not right, but the end results are good. If we need additional time, that's fine. I was in favor of doing it for the charter questions. I'll be in favor of additional time for this.
Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, I appreciate that, so I'll just say a few words. The assessor's office, yes, I did reach out to them. I heard from them today. They were misinformed about the way the exemption worked. I haven't clarified with them, but I clarified tonight. It was, they're reading for something that wasn't in the state law, Mr. President. They're reading from a template. So that's when they sent up red flags that I got today. They're misinformed. Their packet's about 45 pages. maybe 5% of it's substantive, the rest are forms. So it's really not that in-depth of a package to look through. The provision in the law allows for up to 5% of the funds raised to be used for administrative costs. I would suggest that the bulk of that 5% would be for the assessor's office. And again, that is determined by this body, not anyone else, not the mayor, not the committee. It's determined by this body, how the money gets spent. So hopefully that's it. And then to the other point about we want more information. We always want information. Well, let me ask you this, Mr. President. Isn't that something a campaign's about? Wouldn't the campaign be about disseminating information as opposed to bottling up this issue in this body where we can call in the chamber? And I remember, Mr. President, a couple years ago when you asked for the Chamber of Commerce, provide some feedback for the budget. 177 High Street. Oh no, I don't want grandstand anymore. I don't want any at-large councilors to get mad at me. But it was a dearth of information. There was no information from them. I think that as far as rush, maybe it feels like it was rushing, but orders are filed by the gentleman across the way and the gentleman to my next. They're filed 2 months ago. I did my due diligence, Mr. President. I abided by the rules. We took it up within the time limit. We had the hearing. It was last night. It was well notified. Nobody told me whether or not they could come or not come. I don't care whether they come or not. But the orders are before us. We debated it. We looked at it. We heard from the public. We heard from the experts. And we voted on it. Now, other people were here last night, said 0 when they were here. There were no questions asked. There's nothing. We debate. So you want me to throw it back to the committee? Have the folks come back in? Are they going to show up? Who knows? Are they going to ask questions when they show up? Who knows, Mr. President? I don't know what they're going to do. What information do they want? But to me, the bottom line is, if these folks want to have a campaign on this thing, I think that's going to start the debate. And they can have debates with the Chamber of Commerce. They can set them up at the senior center like we do with various Holyoke High School. They can have all sorts of public information. So I'd rather hear from the public on this myself instead of having to stay right here within room 11. But that's just me. So I would oppose the tabling this. I think we should just move on it now and get it out to the public. Thank you.
Hear, hear.
Well, with the body's indulgence, I'm going to say a couple words, just procedurally going forward. I would say that I've had a number of commentaries backwards, forwards, pro and con, and I'm generally in favor of everything going to the ballot, just about within reason. I will say, though, I am having a forum for my ward on April 27th, and this is on the agenda to discuss for that evening. I would like to hear from the people I represent on it in some sort of dialogue way and listen to the feedback, and do they think this is something, healthy for the community? I'd like to get that feedback. That's me personally. I'm generally, like I say, disposed to putting things on the ballot, as casino and all the other things I've voted, 4-year term for mayor and yada, yada. So anyways, that would be my preference, is that we take this up at our next meeting, which may be in May, perhaps, depending on how we move forward. But my point is, that's my take on it. And I'm not trying to, and again, that doesn't impact the November election in any way, or the vote on that. So I'm sort of sympathetic towards that point. I think the committee did a fantastic job. I mean, you guys did what you had to do. I think it's just a matter of continuing to listen a little bit more to constituents on the next steps, because a couple different points need to be made. One is, we have to be very precise about the language we put on the ballot. Whatever the council votes to put for language is the language that goes to the ballot, and there's lots of options. One of the things, so it isn't just send it out the door and that's it, because when you send it out the door, that's the proposal that goes to the ballot, okay? Is it 0.5%, 1%, 1.5%, 2%, 2.5%, 3%? That's it. These notion of exemptions, what feedback are we getting? Some people may feel it should be a lower percentage, but everybody pays. Some people have argued that. I don't know. I'm still listening. Some people feel make it a higher percentage and exempt large classes of individuals. That's another school of thought. But the council has to pick that. So it isn't just, do you want CPA, yes or no? It's, do you want the city council's proposal on CPA, yes or no? That's the key point here. And that is the question presented to the body, and we're not quite at that point yet, at least in my mind. That's my humble opinion. Because I'm not sold yet on it's 1.5 with all those exemptions, blah, 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 blah. I'm not there yet. Maybe in a month, I almost certainly will be there, one way or the other. But I have, like I said, I have this forum, and I do like to hear from my constituents. These are the people I represent. There was a number of speeches earlier made about how we're a representative form of government. I'll double down on that theory. And so that's my particular take. So I had to get that out there, since this is an important issue. Councilor Graney?
Just briefly, some years ago, the state passed a 3% sales tax that was earmarked for education. We all know where that went. So I think we should table this until we get all the information, until we get the percentages and everything else straight.
Second.
Councilor Sullivan for the first time.
Yeah, one of the other things, as we work our way through this, you know, I agree completely. It's, in the end, we got to present a good package and let the voters decide. But one of the points I don't think has been hit on well enough tonight that everybody's got to get their heads around, especially having worked on the community development block grant. I mean, it's just a set amount of money. With this fund, I've looked at what some of the other communities have done. Let's say we get $500,000. You need something different in place than like a committee like we have for community development block grant. They meet for 3 days a year. That's it. To make a program like this effective, you need a committee that's going to work on this all year if you're going to really make it effective. The way I see this working, if you get an effective group of people in there working on this, it's not the $500,000 that you can use or the $600,000. Some of the leveraging that they do, they bring in multiple grants on a project. I looked at the one for East Hampton. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but they got a project that was well over 1.4, 1.5 million done for $200,000 of their CPA money. So there's multiple grants, and some of them aren't just matching. You might only have to put in $100,000 to get $500,000 in grant money. So there is a lot more potential to this than what we're recognizing here, but only if the right people are put in place to do the work to bring this in. If we just take it and spend it, that's well, you get it. When we talk about the Essex House or the Armory or something like that, you know, that's not going to do it. It's having the right people and the right committee in place to effectively administer this.
The other thing I wanted to raise, and maybe somebody could talk about if we're going to get into this even more, or we're going to go with the table, but there was a distinction between the council decides and the committee decides and the council says yes and no. And it's my understanding the law says the latter, not the former. And that's an important distinction.
Council decides.
Council decides, completely.
Yes.
Not the committee and the council says yes or no. Okay, very good. Councilor McGivern.
We were told last night that we set the committee up by ordinance. There were
membership.
models. The membership. The models were there. I believe the ordinance can be more specific, but that is a good question. Just a quick procedural question, Mr. President. If this is going to be tabled, the window isn't November. The window is that you made a good point, and Councilor Bartley alluded this evening that the committee recognizes the language of that question is very important, including the city solicitor's required input of the narrative of the issue itself. But the percentages and the numbers and the question that we decide upon, we need to see in writing. The window, what is the window, if we could ask the city clerk in terms of, this is a state election, not a local election?
Correct.
Even though it's a local question.
I think it's about, 60 days before?
67 or so.
67 days before the November election. So that's probably, September-ish, late August?
August-ish.
Okay.
Because we had some issues last year when we were in August voting on some questions that some made it and a couple didn't.
Right. So to your point, which is an excellent point, Mr. McGivern, is I would recommend if we table this, that we get instead of this language to be named later, let's just get the language from the law department that would be put to the ballot, and the council can have it right there specifically in front of us to vote on. Does that sound reasonable? Counselor McGee?
Instead of tabling it, shouldn't we just lay it on the table, waiting
Not to,
for?
well, right, that's, to table it, not to
Well,
send it back to committee.
Okay, all right, I just don't want it to go
Oh,
back
Todd,
to
do you want to send
committee.
it back to committee?
No.
just
I,
table
I
it
want
here.
I want the question on the ballot. I just want to make sure all the details that we're talking about, especially the legal, coming out, and then once we approve it, it goes.
I
So
want to
the
see the
quicker, the
specific
easier.
language of the question, too.
Right. Looking at the question, that's it. No, I don't want to go back to committee, Dave, no.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to recognize there was a motion that's been made and seconded, if I'm correct. Counselors Graney and Bresdan, is that correct? Oh, go ahead, Counselor Bartley, as the chairman, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Okay, so, and I hear you on that, because I think the last point that you and Joe made was probably a good one. It's probably best that we have first of all, the actual language is in the state law. You know, shall the city of Holyoke adopt sections 3 through 7 of chapter 44B? I think that's more or less it. But it's, the larger part is the technical thing that we don't have in front of us that I think we ought to. And I think
And
based
don't
upon
you
that,
agree? Yeah.
that we should probably have. Now, my only question mark is, once we we're gonna look at this with the 15 of us here? I mean, is that how we're gonna look at this language? I mean,
Well, 14 of us, but yeah.
oh, okay, all right, the 14 of
I'm
us.
being
Oh,
facetious, but
okay,
you know
so-
what I mean, yes.
Okay, the membership here.
Correct.
So okay, and we're hopeful to get that for our May meeting, our first meeting in May?
Third, I would hope, yes.
Okay, so, all right, at least that gives, and the only reason I bring that up, Mr. President, is if we wait until August, which nobody said that, but it was put out as a possibility, I think that shortens the window of really educating the public. I have to get educated on, Mr. President. As I said, I don't know how I'm voting, but and if we want the debate to happen, I think the sooner we get it out, the better, or just don't do it.
Right. Here's the other reason the language is very important. Now, hopefully this can all be done by May 3rd. If it's not, then we wait. But people that are really advocates of this will make sure this due diligence is done. Do we all recall the 2011 charter change, where you got Reader's Digest in the mail, 200 pages long? Yes or no? You know, I want to make sure that doesn't happen to the people of Holyoke.
Mr. President, I said that earlier. That was exactly.
That's my
I
point.
raised that, of
We
course.
don't know this yet, and so my point is, that's why what you just said is absolutely right.
Okay, so I'll agree with the motion to table if we stick with that timeline, that the Madam Solicitor gets us the language well prior, in our email boxes, or in our mailboxes, however it is, well prior to the, so we have a chance to digest it, and we can come in with some edits if necessary.
Absolutely, and then we can move forward.
That's
Councilor
great.
Roman?
Yes, where I rise in opposition to tabling it is that the gentleman spoke to that. It said in the statute that the question will be, does the city of Holyoke accept section blah, blah, blah? It's set by state statute. And then the law department in my filing, the language would look primarily like as you see it written here. It would be that question and then a paragraph that is most likely similar to this paragraph that we see before our body. That is the language that would be submitted by the law department from my knowledge.
Yeah, good Lord, I don't want to rely on the mercy of the law department. If I've learned anything in my going on 4 years, that's lesson one. So in the 3 months you've been here, take my word on that one. It isn't language to be named later. Trust me, you don't want to do that.
And I agree with you, Mr. President, and that sentiment. But I just think that again, same thing, and where I respect that, doing that due diligence. I would just like again to when I filed this, I just didn't file it on my own or make up the language. I checked to see what the language would be, and so to my knowledge, this is what it would be. Again, and where I think Councilor McGivern and everyone else agrees is around the exemptions and the percentage, and that's the debate we're having. So thank you.
Great. Recognizing the motion to table, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. All right.
Ask for a roll call on that.
Second.
Roll call? Okay, is there 3 that want a roll call on table? Okay. Clerk, call the roll. A yes vote is in favor of tabling here at the council level items 31D and E. Clerk will call the roll. Yes vote is to table, no vote is not to table.
Leahy? LeBrun Martinez?
No.
Lisi?
No.
McGee? McGivern?
Yes.
Roman?
No.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
No.
Valentine?
No.
Bartley?
Yes.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Graney?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
8 yeas and 5 nays.
Oh, my ears don't deceive me. All right, we move forward. And we're now back at Communication 3, unless there's any other rule suspensions.
I think the
President.
candidates for auditor and tax collector have been here
Mr.
long enough.
Yes, and that is elections of officers. Counselor Tallman, did you have anything else?
Yeah, I just wondered, we're in that section. Are we going to do anything with those other two items, 31B?
I think there's just procedural votes on those, right, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
nothing,
Oh, wait, okay, no
nothing
problem.
substantive on those two.
Okay. Just thought that we'd get them out of the way, but, all right.
Well, I mean, we could, but
We'll get to them.
we'll
All right,
get
no
to them.
problem,
Those
no
are just
problem.
procedural votes, yeah. Counselor Green?
I'd like to make a motion, we go to page 1.
Second.
I'm actually going to suspend the rules and take out of order 27, sorry, K, L, and M.
KLM,
Violet.
okay. Those are all still at the committee level. Unfortunately, those came out as no committee report. There was insufficient number of signatures to bring it out for a committee report.
I
So
thought
those
that
will
it
be
was,
back.
they were voted on, they were denied in committee, but I'm pretty sure that they were voted out of committee, right?
Yeah, those members did not ultimately sign the committee report, so under the rules, those will stay in committee. And also, new information has been presented to the committee, and that is in the form of a late file communication regarding some tax opinions that have come from the applicant, as well as a cover letter from the law department, and the chairman has asked that those be reviewed before we take any final action on all 5 of those matters. And that the actual assessors come in to take, see the city position on those. That came in over like the other day. In fact, I think one of them's dated over the weekend. Yes.
So, under suspension of rules, can we just have Kara approach and explain to us what happens when we send it back to committee in terms of timelines or anything else that might be happening behind the scenes that we may not be aware of?
Mr. President.
Well, first of all, we didn't suspend the rules, and we're not going to suspend the rules because there's nothing to suspend the rules on. There's nothing in front of us. It's back at the committee. So,
So I'd like to suspend the necessary rules and allow Kara to approach
address the
us.
council
Yes.
generally.
Second.
Okay. Okay, all in favor of allowing the law department, Counselor Graney?
Mr.
Go
President.
ahead, Counselor Graney.
I think that we have a very important issue in front of us this morning, the election of city auditor and tax collector. I'd like to move that so we could get that done. This is about the future of our city. This is very critical, and the people are in the audience, they're waiting for that, and the people at home are waiting for that. Why don't we get to that?
Okay, Counselor Graney makes a motion that we not hear from the law department now, that wait, and that we go to the balloting on the election of officers. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Second. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So moved. So we're going to item 3, which is the election of officers, to wit, city auditor and tax collector. And a motion to go, let me just walk through the process here really quickly. We had a committee report, if I'm correct on this. Let's see, public service. Okay. There was an order sent into committee regarding do we have that order about the interviews and all of that? And I believe there was also a late file on that too as well, wasn't there? An order for it? All right, but we did put election of officers. Actually, okay, well, so under the prior rule, generally, we just put election of officers, no particular order. So actually, we'll have to have a motion to go to the first ballot.
Make a motion to go to the first ballot.
Okay, for auditor.
Oh, yeah,
Auditor?
Which one are we doing first?
Yeah, auditor. only because it appears on the agenda first, so we'll stay with that. Just before, okay, we're at motion to go to the first ballot. I'm going to begin with just saying, first of all, we had openings in both of these positions. As everyone just recalls, I'm just laying the landscape here briefly. Brian Smith, as you know, retired. We have had an interim into that position, which is Mr. Bellamy Schmidt. He has stated his intention to not seek the permanent position and to move on after his acting duties are over with. So therefore, that is what presents the city auditor position to us. The tax collector position, as we all know, David Guzman recently resigned the position, and so therefore, we also have that process now in front of us, which will be second after that. The process is, we will have some dialogue. People can speak or not speak, it's their choice, and state who they wish to have as a candidate or otherwise. But when it comes time to vote, you will state the name of your candidate, and the first person to receive 8 votes, how many ever number of rounds it takes to do this, will be elected auditor as well as tax collector respectively. Any questions on process? Okay, very good. So we're at the first ballot for city auditor. Is there any discussion? Councilor Roman.
Yes, Mr. President, colleagues, thank you, and I thank the Public Service Committee for that meeting. It was a great learning experience for me, being a new counselor, and again, I apologize for being late to that meeting, but I was here for all 3 assessor candidates on time. It was a great process, and you know, the follow-up after that, I was equally impressed by all 3 candidates, but I'm going to be supporting Ms. Carolyn Thomas Davis today. Her outreach, her follow-up, her references was par none, and hearing directly from her, giving me a phone call, and just her experience. And just today, she emailed us a list of professional references. I was able to speak with 2 out of the 4 that she had sent us, and they just gave her glowing reviews, including the city council president from the community that she had emailed us last. His name escapes me. I'm sorry. We've had such a long day today with everything. But I rise in support of Carolyn Thomas Davis. I think she's qualified. I think she's going to give us the honest answers we need, and truly be a representative of that and a great steward for that office. So for that, I rise in support of Carolyn Thomas Davis. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Valentin.
Thank you. I'm also going to be supporting Carolyn Thomas Davis. I was very impressed with her interview, with her passion when she spoke about her previous job experiences. She has had experience in 2 different cities and towns, 2 different cities and towns in Rhode Island. That one of them has actually gone through some very serious scenarios, and I think that she would be an asset to the city. And that is who I will be supporting, and hope that most of us are also voting in that manner. Thank you.
Any other? Councilor Graney.
Yes, I'm going to be supporting Harry Chadwick. I thought that he had the best qualifications for the job and the experience for the job.
Thank you. Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think the committee did a great job of interviewing all 3 candidates. Each candidate brought something to the table, not just with their resumes, but with their thoughts and their experiences that they shared with us. There's little doubt, I think, in my mind that Harry Chadwick is the most qualified. He answered the questions on retirement far more thorough than anyone touched. His experience, obviously, coming from PERAC is part of that. But he also was very blunt about the city. He knew every name of everybody that works in the auditor's office right now, in the retirement board, and most of the other financial offices within the city. He understands the way the system works from his experience with the state. He understands that the answers are important, that we all get the correct answer, not just the room one gets to that, before we do. And he understands, I think, the entire system. One of the questions I had asked about the retirement board was something that I know is near and dear to you, and that's the unfunded liability. And he recognizes that it is an issue. But he also recognizes that our retirement board has done a fairly good job of investing money, and over the years that money should remain in our control until we're not investing it in the correct way. I think all 3 candidates brought something to the table, but I think we'd be very fortunate to have Mr. Chadwick for the next auditor.
Very good. Any other comments, discussion? Counselor Bresnahan?
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree. I was at that meeting. All three brought a lot, and I think what I'm voting for Willie Morales because what I thought he brought to the table was the fact that he's not only bilingual, he's trilingual. I don't know that we have many French people that'll make use of his French abilities, but with such a large Latino contingency in the city of Holyoke, I think it's crucial that we have some folks that speak Spanish as department heads. And so I believe that is why, and I was very impressed with all three. They all have a wealth of experience, but I just think that was the one thing that put him above Ms. Davis and Mr. Chadwick is the fact that he is bilingual. Thank you.
Okay, any other thoughts? Okay, hearing none. Just to refresh everyone's memory, we do vote alphabetically, historically, for these. Of course. And I do want to just point out one thing I failed to mention earlier when I was talking about was the fact that the auditor position is theoretically a permanent position. There's no specific term of years for this position. And the tax collector, however, serves a 3-year term, but whoever will be the successful winner of that race will fill out the remainder of David Guzman's term for the first term, okay? So I'm not sure how much longer is on Mr. Guzman's term. At this point, you check with the clerk's office, whoever the winner is, but it is the remainder of his term. So, if there's without further ado, we'll go to the voting, okay? So the clerk will call the roll. When your name is called, please state the name of your candidate.
Bartley,
Carolyn Thomas Davis.
Bresnahan,
Willie Morales.
Graney,
Chadwick.
Jordan,
Chadwick.
Leahy,
Carolyn Thomas Davis.
LeBron Martinez,
Mr. Harry Chapman.
The Chadwick?
I'm sorry.
You mean Mr.
I'm
Chadwick?
sorry, Chadwick. Yes, I'm sorry. Trying to look at my.
Lacey,
Carolyn Thomas Davis.
McGee, McGivern,
Harry Chadwick.
Roman,
Carolyn Thomas Davis.
Sullivan,
Chadwick.
Tallman,
Carolyn Thomas Davis.
Valentine.
Carolyn Thomas Davis.
Harry Chadwick, 6 votes. Carolyn Thomas Davis, 6 votes. Willie Morales, 1 vote.
Okay, motion to go to the second ballot would be in order.
Can I just question the number of votes for Mr. Chadwick?
6.
6.
Second ballot.
Second.
Who would the 6 be?
The 6 were Graney,
Graney.
McGivern, Jordan, LeBron Martinez, McGee, Sullivan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Motion was to go to second ballot?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Clerk will call the roll.
Bartley,
Harry Chadwick.
Bresnahan,
Ms. Davis.
Graney,
Chadwick.
Jordan,
Chadwick.
Leahy,
Mrs. Carolyn Thomas Davis.
LeBron Martinez,
Carolyn Thomas Davis.
Lacey,
Davis.
McGee, McGivern,
Harry Chadwick.
Roman,
Carolyn Thomas Davis.
Sullivan,
Harry Chadwick.
Tallman,
Carolyn Thomas Davis.
Valentine.
Carolyn Thomas Davis.
Harry Chadwick, 6 votes. Carolyn Thomas Davis, 7 votes.
Okay, motion to go to the third ballot.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, clerk will call the roll.
Bartley,
Chadwick.
Bresnahan,
Davis.
Graney,
Chadwick.
Jordan,
Chadwick.
Leahy,
Mrs. Carolyn Thomas Davis.
LeBron Martinez,
Mrs. Davis.
Lacey,
Ms. Davis.
McGee, McGivern,
Chadwick.
Roman,
Carolyn Thomas Davis.
Sullivan,
Chadwick.
Tallman,
Carolyn Thomas Davis.
Valentine.
Carolyn Thomas Davis.
Harry Chadwick, 6 votes. Carolyn Thomas Davis, 7 votes.
Motion to go to the fourth ballot from anyone? Or
So,
Okay.
Second.
Ready, Madam Clerk? Clerk will call the roll.
Bartley,
Chadwick.
Bresnahan,
Davis.
Graney,
Chadwick.
Jordan,
Chadwick.
Leahy,
Mrs. Carolyn Thomas Davis.
LeBrun Martinez,
Mrs. Davis?
Lisi,
Davis.
McGee, McGivern,
Harry Chadwick.
Roman,
Carolyn Thomas Davis.
Sullivan,
Chadwick.
Tallman,
Davis.
Valentine.
Carolyn Thomas Davis.
Harry Chadwick, 6 votes. Carolyn Thomas Davis, 7 votes.
Okay, we can either table or go to the fifth ballot.
Go to the fifth ballot.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to go to the fifth ballot. Clerk will call the roll.
Bartley,
Chadwick.
Bresnahan,
Davis.
Graney,
Chadwick.
Jordan,
Chadwick.
Leahy,
Mrs. Carolyn Thomas Davis.
LeBrun Martinez,
Mrs. Thomas Davis?
Lisi,
Davis.
McGee, McGivern,
Harry Chadwick.
Roman,
Miss Carolyn Thomas Davis.
Sullivan,
Harry Chadwick.
Tallman,
Davis.
Valentine.
Carolyn Thomas Davis. Mr. President, point of order, just a question, since clearly the last 3 ballots have not changed. Other than tabling, is there any other option that we have? For example, Mr. Chadwick is not even here tonight. Ms. Carolyn Thomas Davis is, and is there an opportunity for her to
Nope.
speak about why folks should support her?
Nope. Not in my opinion.
That's
Make a motion to
unfortunate.
table.
It's unfortunate.
It's
Second.
not, you don't have to be, it's not like the 50-50 raffle where you gotta be present to win, you know? You just, this is it, you
I think
know?
it's a strong message, though. Thank you.
Make a motion to table the ballot for auditor.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to table the ballot for auditor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Ayes have it.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Motion to
We have a counselor who is missing tonight, Ms. Bacon, and maybe we should allow her to have a say in the future of Holyoke.
Yeah, unfortunately, Linda gives her regrets. She was not able to make it. She had a prior business commitment, unfortunately, but, and as you know, nobody expected, obviously, Ms. Shatnoff's departure from us this morning.
motion to go to the first ballot for tax collector.
My question?
Motion, oh, Councilor LeBron Martinez, yes.
So what, we need to get a what, an 8 vote? Is that?
Yep,
8?
that's right.
Okay.
First to 8 wins, yep. Counselor Thomas?
We table that. So what's the next step up for that, for auditor? Do we?
Take it up at the next meeting?
We could take it up tonight also if we want to reconsider, our vote, but
That's true, too.
I don't recall ever not voting on somebody that night of the ballot. We've been, before we went 20-something rounds, so I'm surprised that we tabled this. I thought we'd try to get this done tonight.
Well,
I'm not in
Mr.
support of
Chairman,
tabling.
the motion to table is not debatable.
thank you, Mr. Counselor McGivern's raised a point of order. Chair rules in favor of Counselor McGivern. Moving on to the vote, the motion has been made and seconded to go to the first ballot for tax collector. Any discussion? Hearing none. Clerk will call the roll. Please state the name of your candidate. First to 8, as we know, wins.
Bartley,
Kate Chakowski.
Bresnahan,
Zida Marsh.
Shatnoff.
She's not here.
Oh, I know. Graney,
Ms. Chakowski.
Jordan,
Zaida Marsh.
Leahy,
Ms. Jakowski.
LeBrun Martinez,
Ms. Kokowski?
Lisi,
Katie Jakowski.
McGee, McGivern,
Catherine Jakowski.
Roman,
Zyder Marsh.
Sullivan,
Jakowski.
Tallman,
Catherine Jakowski.
Valentine.
Catherine Jakowski.
Catherine Jakowski, 10 votes. Zida Marsh, 3.
By your vote, you have elected Katie Jakowski to fill out the remainder of the tax collector's term, and she is the successful candidate. Counselor Leahy.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion, we can reconsider our actions on the city auditor position.
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to reconsider. Also. Good point. The motion, yeah, the item was tabled, so you'd have to make a motion to remove from the
Make a
table.
motion to be removed from table.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to remove from the table. This is not debatable. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. Noes have it.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Okay.
Show of hands, show of hands.
Okay. Show of hands if you want to remove the auditor vote from the table.
Is it per-
7, motion fails.
Ryan said yes.
Nice try.
Tried.
Someday maybe, right, Ryan?
Is that,
He's too smart for that.
is that majority of the, is the majority of the body, majority of the
Majority. it
present?
votes, Yeah.
Of the present?
the
There's
present?
There's
Body.
13, oh, the body, okay, I thought it might have been a majority of the present, because there's 13 people here.
Yeah, that's the way all of our motions are. It's of the body here. Yeah, so, all right. Okay, moving right along.
So, Mr. President, until the vacancy on this council is filled, whenever that's going to take place, the majority will continue to be 8.
Yes, yes.
It's always 8.
I'm just saying, I mean, it's,
That's right. Let me give it to you one better. Let me give you one better than that. We have items, i.e. a zone change, okay? And it takes 10 votes. If 10 people show up, the vote's got to be 10 to 0.
10-0.
I guess it just shows the importance of filling this vacancy sooner than later.
There's not
I
even
don't
formally a
disagree.
vacancy yet,
I don't
but-
disagree. Yep.
And
And I'm
you-
sure we're going to get to that. There's an item in late.
Well,
there's
it's
an item in late
it's late
on
file
that.
A, so that might be at 1 in the morning.
Yep. Yep. But
Not if we
We
don't.
suspended the rules
If
to
we
have
stop
public
talking
comment.
about rules, we can get on with business.
yeah, there you go. So, here we go.
There we go.
We are on item 4.
4, 5 as a package, please.
Second.
They're both reappointments, so I'm going to move as you take them up to accept the letters and confirm the reappointments.
Second.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded to suspend the rules to take items 4 and 5 as a package and to confirm the appointments. Counselor Lisi, I think that's what I heard, right?
They're both reappointments, so yes, confirm them.
Okay, thank you. Under discussion, Counselor Sullivan.
I'd like to see Miriam Panich go to Public Service Committee for this. This is a 5-year appointment. Planning Board, an awful lot not going on in the city right now as far as industrial development. And I'd like a chance to talk to her a little bit about what her vision is for the next 5 years before we just go ahead and confirm another 5.
Okay?
So no package.
Usually that's by unanimous consent, the packages, so we'll separate that as a package. And so we'll just act on item 4, and then we'll act on item 5. So as respect to item 4, you're making a motion to send this to Public Service Committee, item 4?
Yes.
Can we vote on my order first? I haven't heard that seconded, the second, I'm sorry.
He objected to putting them together as a package, so now we're going to vote 4 and 5 separately.
Yeah, that's fine, but I still made a motion to confirm the reappointment. So unless there's a second, I wouldn't like to,
That's right, your motion is on the floor, but he's now made a motion to, instead of confirming it, send it to committee.
has there been a second?
Second.
Yep. So, all in favor of sending item 4 to committee?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Sounded like more ayes to me, so item 4 to committee. Item 5. We have a motion on the floor from Counselor Lisi to confirm item 5.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. 5 confirmed.
Receive the minutes from the clerk and our administrative assistant and approve.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to receive item 6 and to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So
Number
moved.
7 to finance, please.
Item number 7, the acting city auditor, this is a letter regarding the monthly budget reports for the general fund and wastewater treatment plant as of February 29th, 2016. Motion on the floor is to send item 7 to the finance committee. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
8 is a letter from Dave Martins regarding his retirement, and then 9 through 12 are minutes, so I'd like to just receive all those as a package.
Second.
Mr. President, with regards to number 8,
Yep, I'll recognize you 1 second, Counselor. So motion on the floor is to suspend the rules to take items 8 through, you said 11?
12, please.
12 as a package and to receive all of them. Can I have that, please? Thank you. Item number 8 is from David Martins. He's the Chief Procurement Officer. It's his letter of retirement as of May 1st, 2016. Item number 9 is from the Board of Public Works. It's the minutes of February 22nd. Item number 10, Sewer Commission minutes of February 22nd. Item 11, the Stormwater Authority minutes of February 22nd. And item number 12, the Historic Commission minutes of January 11th and February 22nd. Under discussion, recognizing Counselor McGee.
just quickly with regards to Mr. Martin's, just looking to see if, do I have to file an order, is it allowable to say that we receive this and request him to come in on May 3rd in order to provide him with a citation for 45 years of service to the city? I mean,
No comment.
would you like me to file an order or late?
Would
I want to
you
do a late
please?
file, but 45 years, he should be recognized, and May 1st is
Absolutely.
his last day, so.
Absolutely.
Want to do it that way?
Could you just send it, yeah, our general process is just send an order, we adopt it. This way, it's not coming from Todd and Kevin, it's coming from the whole body.
So I'll just do a late file?
Yeah, please, yeah.
Okay,
If
just
you
making
would-
sure, I don't want to get yelled at by anyone.
See the clerk, you know her. She'll get you one of those forms.
won't show up.
You know.
What's that up? Who's gonna do that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dave.
I know you did, I know.
I gotta get something to eat.
Obviously, item number 8 is obviously with a lot of disappointment, but we're very pleased for David on his behalf that he, gave us so many years of great service, and we wish him the very, very best in his retirement. He's a good guy. Any other discussion? All in favor of receiving items 8 through 12? Opposed? So moved. We have a petition of Mount Tom Solar LLC for a special permit
Receive, sent to DGR.
for the construction of a solar PV facility within the flood overlay district at 200 Northampton Street. Motion on the floor is to send to DGNR committee.
Second?
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Refer to
14, 15, and 16 is a package.
Okay.
They're all renewals of different licenses. I'd like to motion that we receive the petition, grant the renewal pending all municipal fees and taxes are paid,
Okay.
up to date.
Motion on the floor is to receive items 14, 15, 16, these petitions, and to grant them on the condition that all of them are current on their municipal charges and various taxes. I'm going to just go through these at this time. Item number 14 is a petition of Antonio Robles of 64 Magnolia Avenue. He's seeking a renewal of his junk collector's license. Item number 15 is from Kim Silva of the Hoyoke Turnvin. She is seeking a renewal of 2 pool tables and 6 bowling alleys located at 624 South Bridge Street. And item number 16 is a petition of Tom Lucchese for a renewal of 19 pool tables, 1 billiard table at 151 Chestnut Street. I would note for the record that all of Mr. Robles's, located at 64 Magnolia Avenue, all municipal charges and taxes are current. Item number 15, Kim Silva and the Hoyoke Turnvin, all municipal charges and taxes are current. And item number 16, regarding Ivory Billiards and Thomas Lucchese's petition, All of those are municipal charges and taxes are current. So those are the petitions that now stand before us for renewal, and I believe each of these locations has had these for many, many years. I assume we'll pass it with the caveat any pre-existing conditions be maintained as well. That's probably a good footnote to put in there as well, to the extent that there are any. Any discussion? Okay. A motion on the floor is currently to adopt and pass all three of these as a package, and therefore you would be adopting all three as a package. No further discussion. Clerk will call the roll. A yes vote is in favor of adoption of these three petitions and granting the renewals. A no vote is to deny all three.
Leahy?
Speaking to your husband, could you just refresh?
Granting the renewals of Mr. Robles, Holyoke Turnvin, and Ivory
Yes,
Billiards permits.
Yes.
LeBrun Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee? McGivern?
Yes.
Roman?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tolman? Valentine?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Greeny?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
By your vote, you have granted the renewals for items 14, 15, and 16. A motion from Counselor Sullivan, or you have some item?
No, just to help you, it's pronounced Turnverein.
Oh, Turnverein. Thank you. Is that the German?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
We call it Turnverein, but it's all right. In America, that's okay.
Yes. One time when I was on baseball, Little League, I had represented the Springfield Turnverein.
That's how I pronounce it. But it's all right.
Well, ich spreche dann kein Deutsch.
Excellent. Item 17 is now before the body. If you could hand that to me, sir. Thank you. Item number 17 is a petition of Ricardo Betancourt for a pool table to be located at 65 Commercial Street.
Receive, sent to finance.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to receive, refer to finance. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
18 through 23 are all renewals of secondhand licenses. Be received, grant the renewals pending all municipal fees and taxes.
Second.
You said 18, 19, 20?
Through 23.
Oh, through 23, thank you, okay. Motion on the floor is to suspend the rules to take items 18 through 23 as a package. I will go through those at this time. 18 is the petition of the First Baptist Church. This is the Grandma's Attic Thrift Store for renewal of their secondhand license to be located at 1976 Northampton Street. Item number 19 is from Echo ATM for renewal of their secondhand license located at the Holyoke Mall, located at 50 Holyoke Street. Item number 20 is a petition of the Goodwill Industries of the Pioneer Valley for renewal of their secondhand license located at 235 South Street. Item number 21 is a petition of Mimi May for renewal of a secondhand license located at 326 Appleton Street. Item number 22 is a petition of Record Town, Inc., DBA FYE number 725, a renewal for a secondhand license located at the Holyoke Mall, 50 Holyoke Street. Item number 23 is a petition of Tae Woong Kong, also known as Emmanuel Jewelry, for renewal of a second-hand license located at 311 High Street. These items are now before the body, and let me just review. First Baptist Church, as we know, is tax exempt for the purposes of property tax. All their municipal charges are current. Echo ATM. Current on all. Goodwill Industries. Current on all. Mimi May. Current on all. Record Town, Inc. Current on everything. And Emmanuel Jewelry, also current on everything. Motion on the floor is to
Receive
receive and adopt all and grant the renewals of items 18 through 23. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll. A yes vote is in favor of all of these items. A no vote is to deny all.
Leahy,
Yes.
LeBron Martinez.
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee, McGivern.
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Valentine,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Bresnahan,
Yes.
Graney,
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Unanimous vote of the body.
By your vote, you've approved items 18 through 23, all of those renewals. Item number 24 is a petition of Farus Barramundi, AKA Yellow Cab, for 2 renewal taxi cab applications.
Receive and grant the renewal pending all municipal fees and taxes are paid.
As well as making sure cars pass inspection, as well as sufficient insurance. I'm seeing registration certificates and otherwise here, but there doesn't seem to be any statement one way or the other on taxes. I'm not sure there is a tax obligation, other than maybe, I don't even know if there's excise tax obligation. None of these vehicles are housed in town. So I don't believe there would be any municipal charges or taxes due from this individual.
Grant the renewal.
Okay, motion on the floor is there a second? Second to grant the renewal. Any discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll. A yes vote is in favor of granting the 2 renewal taxi cab applications with those conditions aforementioned, which was that the proper registration, approval from the police department, and inspection, proper passing of inspections to the satisfaction of the Ohio Police Department. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Leahy,
Yes.
LeBron Martinez.
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee, McGivern.
Yes.
Roman.
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Valentine,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Bresnahan,
Yes.
Graney,
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
By your vote, you've approved the renewal of 2 taxi cab applications for Yellow Cab. Item number 25 is a petition of Faros Barramundi of Yellow Cab for 4 new taxi cab applications. The motion on the floor is to send it to Finance. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item number
Six to public service.
Okay. Item number 26 is a petition of John L. Grossman for a new home occupation permit, number 4.8.2, for an office at 16 Carroll Lane. Motion on the floor is to send it to, you said, Public Service? Okay, thank you. Motion on the floor is to send to Public Service. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. President's report. I have a lot of opinions on a lot of things that I wanted to go over.
That's unusual.
However, in light of the late hour at this point, I'm just going to say the very, very Reader's Digest version of this. One was one on Dave Martins on a happy note. Dave's a great guy. We're going to miss him. And he has now put forward his retirement date to us, and that's going to be pretty soon for May 1st. And so it'll be incumbent upon the mayor to come forward with a candidate for that, for your, subject to your confirmation. And as I best recall, that's a 5-year appointment. Want to secondly say, it's obviously with deep disappointment that obviously the room has a chair empty here, and that's from our distinguished colleague, Councilor Shadnoff. It's really a commentary on where politics are at currently, and this is a state of affairs. I'll have more thoughts and comments on this in the future. But suffice it to say, this is where the state of affairs are in Hoyoke politics at this day and age, that someone feels that it is at a point where they're at complete wit's end, that they have to feel a need to resign their seat from the city council in order to protect their family. Good God, where are we with politics in this town when it's at that point? And more thoughts about that and lessons we can take away. The one thing I think about is a speech that I heard from Governor Baker the other day at Outlook 2016 was one of the things that he's trying to interject into a common reoccurring theme and changing the tone in Boston is strength in that we fight diligently for our principles, but also decency in that we treat each other like human beings. And that at the end of the day, there's got to be a strong mix of both. And so hopefully, as we move forward in this process and in this, we can take away and hopefully there's some growing from all of this for all of us, and more to follow on that. I'll leave it at that for this evening. I'll leave it at that. Oh, actually, one other point. Yes, as it relates to our April 19th meeting, couple things. One is it's school vacation coming up that week of April 19th. And for some of us that have families that have school-age children that are taking advantage of the week off to be with our families, it would be nice if we could consider either postponing or having that meeting just consolidated with our May 3rd meeting. There is a motion later in the evening to consider suspending Rule 1 for that purpose and just having a May 3rd meeting. And so I know, obviously, we already have one empty chair, and I know at least a few counselors that cannot attend on April 19th. So if folks would indulge the membership in that regard to either reschedule, and we can talk about it later in a minute, or just cancel outright, and we'll put it all in for May 3rd, that would be appreciated. Okay.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
When we do the whole what's the word I'm looking for? When we do the
fine, you're doing fine.
I know. When we do the canceling of the summer, which we usually do like
The
that.
July ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually there's kind of more notice, obviously. My concern in terms of what you just discussed would be that if there's specific items, like sometimes there's things that come to finance that are, grants, or even from our planning office, or, if there's things that need to have votes, that would be my concern. So I don't know the answer to that, but usually when we talk about the July one, there's kind of obviously much more notice for these departments that rely on our pieces to move things forward. So that would be what I would just kind of add to the conversation.
Okay, that's a fair point, and we'll see if it's. We can talk about it in a minute. I know out of ordinance, I did speak to the chair. She has nothing pressing for the 19th. She said everything could wait till the 3rd. There's nothing pressing out of ordinance. I don't know finance if there's anything.
We'll have a meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
On all that stuff. There are grants and stuff, but I haven't been alerted to a time frame.
Okay, so there you go. And I suppose worst came to worst, we could, something that week after, we could do a special meeting if there was also, I'd be happy to call something if something arose as well. Counselor Bartley?
Mr. President, just on a miscellaneous thing, just if I could.
Yeah, please.
Just two uplifting things. One, I attended the Rotary's 100th anniversary. It's a lovely event. Right after that, I attended a phenomenal play by the Holyoke High School students, led by Mark Todd. It was as good as any Broadway production I've ever seen, so they ought to be commended, and I just want to express that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, they did a wonderful, wonderful job. Anybody else? Okay, great. Moving on to reports of committees. First up is these items 27A, B, and what were the other two? There was
27.
There was 5 of them.
27 KL&M.
KL&M, I think I spoke to that earlier, which is this new information that's come to light, and there's going to need to be a discussion around that. Chair asked that these new information has come to in order to make an educated committee report, and therefore the membership, as the majority of the committee has stated to keep these in committee. So there's, under the rule, insufficient number of signatures to support a committee report, which is required. So those will be in committee at this time. Okay. And so stay tuned. That'll, I'm sure, be up at a very soon and future meeting. 27B, C. We now go to 27C. 27C is a report from the Committee on Ordinance to whom was referred an order that the discard of refuse items on public or private property in excess of 2 pounds constitutes an act of illegal dumping. Examples are items such as mattresses, furniture, tires, bags of household trash, etc. Penalty for such illegal disposal to be not less than $1,000 and up to $2,500 reward for the arrest and conviction. Also a reward, of $250 for this purpose. Have considered the same. Recommend that the order be adopted as amended. Councilors Lisi, Bartley, and Jordan.
Motion to pass the first reading?
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to pass the first reading.
Under
Okay.
discussion,
Under discussion, Councilor Lisi.
thank you. So, essentially, with this order, we're creating criminal penalties and very steep fines for illegal dumping in the city of Holyoke. This order was filed by Councilor Sullivan. We had a really great discussion about like how either the homeowner or the person actually creating the trash and the illegal dumping would be distinguished by the ordinance. And really what compelled me to vote in favor of this was that the legal department felt that it gave the legal department and the enforcement agencies another tool to work with. I know that some people have commented on the fines being very steep and probably very difficult for people who are doing illegal dumping to pay, but there is the associated criminal penalty, associated with it, and it's at the discretion of the enforcement agencies to, assess or attach the maximum penalties to the violators. Again, the maker was Councilor Sullivan, and so if he wants to speak more to the particulars of the order, I would defer to him.
Thanks. Appreciate that. One thing I had a question on was, generally in ordinance, I have the legal form, but I thought this was going in the form of a special act, wasn't it?
Oh, it is, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and do we have the special act language? Do you have it? Because I don't have it attached to the, it was sent back with the order. Do you have the special act language? With the other order, which one was that, do you recall? Is that 20? Oh, take a look at under 27J. Yes, we're all set. Would it be okay if we did these as a package? Yeah, because it's the same issue and it's the same author. Okay. Motion on the floor is to suspend the rules to take up 27C and 27J as a package. All in favor? Opposed? So moved. Okay. So that is that the Committee on Ordinance, to whom was referred an order that the discard or hazardous regulated waste be subject to fines of $2,500 to $5,000 reward leading to the arrest and conviction of $500. Examples would be asbestos, PCBs, lead, mercury, etc. This would include items containing hazardous materials such as refrigerators with Freon, brake pads, floor tiles with asbestos, paint, batteries, lead, light fixtures, and PCBs. This comes to us recommended for adoption from Councilors Lisi, Bartley, and Jordan. Attached to this, which I hopefully councilors have all seen, is the special act language. And I want to be clear, just to expand upon what the vice chair's comments were, that under the ordinance, we are allowed to have a fine of up to $300. What Councilor Sullivan worked really hard on, and the committee agreed with him, was that we needed to go a step beyond, which is to have this as a special act to give us the power to exceed those $300 fine limits to the numbers that were mentioned. And so a person convicted of a violation of Section 1, which is all those nefarious things, would be subject to a fine of not less than $5,000 nor more than $10,000. Plus, there's the potential for imprisonment in a house of correction of not more than 7 days, or a fine and imprisonment. And a person found responsible in a civil action for a violation of Section 1 shall be required to pay a civil penalty of 3 times the amount, up to $5,000, estimated or actually paid by the city to remove dump material from the property. The court may also issue other orders and injunctions to remedy the circumstances of each. And I believe there's also a provision, a benefit to the special act. I don't know, Councilor Sullivan, if you're going to touch on this, about who gets to collect the money and afterwards, as opposed to a regular ordinance versus the special act. So I'm going to turn it over at this time. Just wanted to get that precision language out to everybody. Councilor Sullivan, you have the floor.
Well, probably need Kara to help me or correct me on this, but as I understand it, we only get a portion of that, but it's a hefty portion, and the other part would go to, we get all of it.
Under the special act.
Okay. I thought part went to DEP or something like that, but this is a very similar legislation to which was already approved in the city of Lynn, and I think it's what we need. One of the things we struck from it was to protect the one of the citizens brought here tonight about we're not going after the properties owners on this. We're going after people actually doing illegal dumping, so those protections were afforded to them. And I think this sends a clear message, out to the surrounding communities and the rest of the state in general. Where Holyoke stands, and a big move in the seriousness that we take in blight reduction and bringing the city back.
Very good. Anybody else? Councilor LeBron Martinez.
Yes, I'm glad that that was cleared. It is more like for those who discard or dump in our city, because I did have a concern, and it also was brought to my attention. I know that normally and usually the ones who get penalized on these are those who live in the lower wards, because it's easier to go dump in alleyways and all of that. And I was, a victim of that before the Holyoke Public Library was built, the parking lot was built. That alleyway was always filled with dumping of others, and I will be cited for things that I was not responsible for. But because the alley is yours, I just want to make that clear, because I know those who are watching, I've gotten call regarding this situation. Thank you.
Yes, Councilor McGivern led their cause and made sure on the property owner provision. That was the old Section 2. So he took care of that. Just hats off to you, Councilor Sullivan. This was a lot of work to put together, and you did a great job. And as a new councilor, I was very impressed.
Thank you.
Councilor McGivern.
I would just echo those thoughts, Mr. President. It's a great new order for a problem that's been long-standing. I thank Councilor Sullivan, who may have been a little bit reluctant but agreed to the compromise. But I understand, I think many of us have seen, as Councilor LeBron Martinez just said, there are people who have been penalized, $200, $300, or threatened to be penalized for something that they did not do, that they were actually victims. And I think this law should go after those that are the actual perpetrators, and it's near criminal. This special act is not quite getting it to that level, but it's near criminal, and we have to enforce it. This city has to enforce it. But a great new ordinance, a great new special act, a great new tool for the city to use.
Any other thoughts, comments? Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call the roll. This is a special act, so we're going to take this by roll call vote. A yes vote is in favor of adoption of the special act. A no vote is to deny.
Leahy? LeBron Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee? Yes. McGivern?
Yes.
Roman?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tolman?
Yes.
Valentine?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Bresnahan?
Yes.
Graney?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
By your unanimous vote, you've approved the special act related to illegal dumping. And we now move, let's see, we went to 27C, we're now up to 27D.
Motion to pass the first reading?
Okay, we have 27D. Okay. All right, motion on the floor is to go to the first reading on item number 27D, which is the Committee on Ordinance, to whom was referred an order that a handicap sign be placed in front of 148 Leary Drive for Giovanni Correa. Have considered the same, recommend that the order be adopted. Councilors Lisi, Bartley, and Jordan.
So this is pretty straightforward. It's a handicap placard going up in front of 148 Leary Drive. The site was visited by our Commission on Disabilities and recommended for approval.
Thank you. Just to expand on this, this is an order I filed, and this was, there's a handicapped child. Giovanni Correa is a handicapped child, and this was requested by his mother. And so this will be of great help to the family. Much appreciated. Any discussion at first reading? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved.
Items number 27.
Second reading.
Oh, I'm sorry. Motion to pass the second reading.
No, it's
I'm getting
late.
ahead of myself.
Yeah, no problem. Motion's been made and seconded to pass the second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Motion that the passage be ordained.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second, motion's been made and seconded that the passage be ordained. There is no further discussion. The clerk will call the roll. A yes vote is in favor of the ordinance change, and no vote is to deny it.
Leahy,
Yes.
LeBron Martinez,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee, McGivern,
Yes.
Roman,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Valentine,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Bresnahan,
Yes.
Graney,
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Unanimous vote.
By your vote, you have approved the handicap permit for Giovanni Correa. Item number 27E is a
E through
report.
I as a package, please, are all amendments to the traffic ordinances.
Sounds good.
If anyone wants to speak to them individually, they can. However, I think that the way the orders are written are very straightforward, and so if there's no questions.
Okay, sounds good. Motion has been made and seconded to suspend the rules to take up items 27E through 27I as a package. All in favor of suspending the rules for that purpose?
Aye.
Opposed? Almost a 1-0 vote on that. Item 27E, the Committee on Ordinance, to whom was referred an order that the current bus stop in front of 6264 Hampshire Street be moved in front of the open lot located at 74 Hampshire Street. Have considered the same, recommend that the order be adopted. Councilors Lisi, Bartley, and Jordan. 27F is an order introduced by, is a committee report from the Committee on Ordinance, to whom was referred an order that the City of Holyoke create a three-way stop at the intersections of Papineau and Temple Streets to reduce the level of speeding vehicles passing through without slowing down. Also, this intersection is located behind the Robert F. Kennedy Children's Homeschool. Have considered the same, recommend that that also be adopted. Councilors Lisi, Bartley, and Jordan. 27G is an order, is a committee report from ordinance, to whom was referred an order that a stop sign be created at the corner of Forest Street at the intersection of Isabella Street. Have considered the same, recommend that the order be adopted. Councilors Lisi, Bartley, and Jordan. 27H is a report from the Committee on Ordinance, to whom was referred an order that the city change Russell Terrace and Harrison Avenue from allowing one-way traffic to two-way traffic. Have considered the same, recommend that the order be adopted as amended, stating ordered that the city change Russell Terrace from allowing one-way traffic to two-way traffic. That was approved by Councilors Lisi, Bartley, and Jordan. And last but not least is 27I, which is a report from the Committee on Ordinance, to whom was referred an order that off-street parking fee be increased to $40 per month, and that off-street hourly parking fee be increased to 35 cents per hour, to a maximum of $3.50 per day. Have considered the same, recommend that the order be adopted. Councilors Lisi, Bartley, and Jordan.
Motion to pass the first reading?
Motion's been made and seconded to pass the first reading on all of those items, 27E through 27I. Under discussion, Councilor Lisi.
There are amendments to the traffic ordinance. Again, I think that they're written in a very straightforward manner. If any of the makers want to speak to those orders, they can, and I'm happy to field questions. Otherwise, I'll just let the orders speak for themselves.
Mr. President.
Council Tomlin.
Yeah, through the chair, Councilor Lisi, on number 27I, is there a date set for that, and will the people be notified for the parking? Off-street parking, is that for the parking decks?
Yes, the answer was June 1st, sir.
June 1st, okay. So
We put a
people will
little
be-
lag into it.
Then people will be notified that are current parkers?
Yep. Yeah, the point was, this is actually, I filed this at the request of the mayor because actually for FY16's budget, there was some money and he was thankful we're doing this because for next year's budget, there's going to be a request for budgeted as revenues, these monies. And so this is to raise additional funds at the parking decks. Both the daily rate as well as the monthly rate. But we felt, as to your point, there should be some notice as opposed
Okay.
to passing it now and starting it tomorrow. There should be some notice of June 1st.
Yeah, I'm glad that's happening. I know we talked about that for a couple of years and then just try to get the revenue stream increased a little bit because it was quite low compared to other communities.
Oh, yeah, like $20 a month.
Yeah, yeah.
Supposed to raise $100,000, we're told.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Councilor McGivern?
Mr. President, the agenda reads the original order. The actual language is the two-tier approach, which was half this year and half the following fiscal year. Just to be on record, just to.
Let's see here. I'm looking at the legal language. The fee shall be $20 paid, effective June 1, 2016. The fees will be $30 per month, effective June 1, 17, $40 a month. You're right. And then the fees are 25 cents per hour. Those will increase to 35 cents per hour to a maximum of $3.50. So the hourly rate goes in full now, but the monthly Parker rate is phased in $10 now, June 1.
Okay.
$10 a year from now, June 1, 17.
Okay.
To 40.
Thank you.
Good catch, Councilor McGivern. That's true. I remember we talked about that in committee. Anything else? Thoughts on any of these? Okay, very good. Without further discussion, all in favor of passing the first reading? Aye. Opposed? So
Aye.
moved.
Motion to pass second reading?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to pass the second reading. Any discussion? Aye. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Motion that the passages be ordained.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded that the passage be ordained. There is no further discussion. The clerk will call the roll. A yes vote in favor of 27E through 27I is to adopt all of those items. A no vote is to deny all the items.
Leahy?
Yes.
LeBrun Martinez?
Yes.
Lisi?
Yes.
McGee? McGivern?
Yes.
Roman?
Yes.
Sullivan?
Yes.
Tallman?
Yes.
Valentine?
Yes.
Bartley?
Yes.
Bresnahan?
No.
Graney?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
12 yeas, 1 nay.
By your vote, you have approved all of those ordinance changes. Let's see now. We took care of the remainder of those. There were no Finance Committee reports. Public Safety, we took care of the one Public Service Committee report.
There's one from DGR 31B that's left over, I believe.
Thank you. And,
Motion to lay it on the table, and we'll deal with it when we deal with the other item that was laid on the table.
okay. Motion on the floor is to table 31B. That's not debatable. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
And as we go into the orders, can we do abbreviated readings? Since they'll be
Motion to
read in committee?
suspend the rules for abbreviated readings for the remainder of the agenda relative to motions, orders, and resolutions. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. Okay. Thank you. 33 is from Counselor Vacan. It's a request to the police chief to enforce no parking on Holy Family Road.
Receive, adopt, refer to the police.
Okay, motion's made and seconded to receive, adopt, and refer to the police. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. 34. Introduced by Counselor Vacan. Seeking signs to encourage slower speeds on Mountain Road.
Receive, adopt, referred, the DPW and city engineer.
Motion's been made and seconded to receive, adopt, and refer to the DPW and city engineer. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item 35, introduced by Councilor Valentin. Council adopt a resolution affirming the city of Holyoke's commitment to civil rights, et cetera, et cetera. And this, I think, is related to the North Carolina matter as well. And I assume
Make a motion to refer to Committee on Resolutions.
the new ad hoc committee on resolution.
Make a motion to receive and adopt, please.
Second.
Okay.
You can please read the wording of the order, please. Not the whole resolution. Everybody has that in email since last Friday.
Oh,
But-
just of the email?
Yeah,
I
well-
mean, just of the order?
Yes, please.
Okay. Counselor Valentin ordered that the city council adopt a resolution affirming the city of Holyoke's commitment to civil rights, ensuring equity for all people in Holyoke and beyond, that a copy of the resolution be provided to Senator Humison, Vega, and Governor Baker. And your motion on the floor is to adopt, so we can either adopt it or we can send it to committee for discussion.
And I'm making the motion that we receive it and adopt it and vote on it tonight. Like I said before, this is one of the scenarios where it's not as much if we vote in favor of it, but what the message is if we don't vote in favor of it, as I said earlier.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Do we have a copy of North Carolina HB2?
That's not in the order.
Says the
It's
city
in the
council-
resolution.
Well, isn't that what you're asking us to adopt?
No,
It
but
says
I'm-
adopt a
I'm-
resolution affirming, so we skip page 2, that's irrelevant? It's just we affirm
No,
our commitment to civil rights and ensuring equity of all people?
Well, since we're not going to read the whole resolution into the record, what I just want to make clear is that this resolution is not just about this North Carolina piece, because I don't want it to be phrased that way because it's not accurate.
Okay. You're asking us, though, to adopt a resolution that says all these many things. So I just want to make sure that we're saying that we're agreeing to all those things, some of which I have never read or I have a sense of from reading headlines in the newspapers, but I have not read North Carolina HB2. I haven't, I don't even know what Senate Bill 735 is that we're asked to stand up in support of. I don't know what House Bill 1577 is that you've asked us also to stand up in support of. I like all the other things about no discrimination anywhere in the Commonwealth and that we support diversity of all people and equity of all people, so I like all that. It's just we're taking positions on all these other bills in the Massachusetts legislature and North Carolina, and I've never seen those.
Well, everyone has had this since Friday. No one has contacted me with any questions.
Yeah, well, I have a great many things to do besides contact you. I expect when people file these things that you give me a copy of these things. Otherwise, that's why things end up in committee, you know? So, you know, that's Kevin Jordan's take on it, but that's me. That's why I would see a motion to go to committee or table it so you can provide us a copy of House Bill 1577 and Senate Bill 735. I don't vote on things I don't know what they say. For all I know, Lord knows what that says. That's just me.
Motion to send to public service.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's made and second to send it to public service. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Show of hands. All in favor of sending it to committee? All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that failed.
So the motion is to receive and adopt.
Okay. All right. Counselor McGivern,
Mr. President, if I don't know what I'm voting on, I'll be voting no.
ditto. How about this? I'll make an amendment.
I'd like to motion that we lay it on the table.
Thank you. So, and just provide us copies of these things. We're probably all in favor. Let's not turn something probably non-controversial into controversial. Let's just get the info. And when we read those things, we're probably all on board with you.
So you would like the links for House Bill 2 in North Carolina and the pending legislation in our state of Massachusetts, which is what's referred to in the further bullet.
I want, yes, I want.
Okay, just to be clear, so that everyone can, I will email that to everyone tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Because that's, if we're just, if you want me to say I'm in favor of those things, just let me know what they are. Because the rest of it I like. It seems non-controversial. So let's not, I don't want to be controversial. Okay, great. So motion on the floor is to table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Mr. President, can we take 36 and 37 as a package, please?
Second.
All right. You said 36, 37 as a package?
Yeah, Mr. President, sorry.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Mr. President.
Motion is to suspend the rules to take 36 and 37 as a package. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. 36 says Counselor Bartley would like to, due to the pending install of a mid-block crosswalk, City Council consider eliminating parking spaces on the northbound side of South Street. 37 says, per constituent concerns, truck traffic on Homestead between Westfield Road and Cherry and Jarvis should be disallowed during overnight hours.
Ordinance, please.
Ordinance for both 36 and 37. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. President, can we take 38 and 39 as a package, please? Suspend the
Okay.
rules.
Motion to suspend the rules to take 38, 39 as a package. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. 38, DPW replaced the sidewalk on Queen Street between Coit and King. 39, DPW replaced the sidewalk at the corner of South and
Make a
Harrison.
motion to receive, adopt, and refer to DPW.
Motion on the floor has been made and seconded to receive, adopt, and refer to the DPW. Any discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. 40. Item number 40 from Counselor Leahy, city placed 4 stop signs in intersections where lights are not working and are blinking to prevent accidents until these lights are fully repaired. Ordinance?
Receive, adopt, it's into ordinance, DPW, and alarm division as well, copies.
You gotta have an ordinance to create a stop sign.
Yeah, no ordinance, but have copies go to the.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't. So, refer to ordinance with a copy to the DPW and.
The alarm division.
And alarm division. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item,
Item number 41 through 44, take as a package.
Second.
Second.
items 41 through 44, for whatever reason, I was a co-sponsor on those with you. Can I add my name as a co-sponsor?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. I don't know how I didn't get on there. But, taking 41 through 44 as a package, all in favor of that?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. And 41, dog park, have lights installed. 42, dog park, have water installed. We've had these before.
Yeah, we had the lights especially.
Dog park, have dog-friendly mulch installed. That's an oldie but goodie. This is a new one, 44. City put in a 60-foot baseball, softball diamond with dugouts, fences, and lights in community fields.
I like it.
And what do we want to do with that?
Just into the Parks and Rec Department, maybe a copy to Public Safety.
Okay. Should we have them in on 44?
Yeah.
That way, huh?
I think we
Yeah.
should, yeah.
We have had them in on that?
Have to, yeah.
Oh, we have to, okay. So why don't we just adopt 41 through 43?
Okay.
And just tell them, and then 44, why don't we send it to like public service or something?
Okay.
Okay, so 41 through 43 as a package, so amended. Any discussion? Councilor McGivern.
Great orders. I just asked that a copy go to the future CPA committee.
In advance?
It's a good idea,
Okay.
yeah.
Great.
I file these on behalf of my dog Quigley.
Yes, Quigley
All right,
approves.
Quigley.
I didn't see a paw print on these, but, okay, all in favor of adopting and sending to Park and Rec? Opposed,
Aye.
so moved. Item 44, motion is to send to public service.
Aye.
Aye.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. 45, from Council LeBron Martinez. The city council demand that speed bumps be placed on Bauer Street to prevent speeding up the hill near Kelly. A first-grade student crossing the sidewalk was hit on March 1st, 2016. We had a fatality several years ago. We must avoid a fatality with one of the children. Receive, adopt, and ask the DPW to put them in?
Please.
Okay. Motion on the floor is to receive, adopt, and refer to the DPW for immediate action.
Well, Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
it doesn't require a petition process?
I'm assuming we mean should we put in the word temporaries for now, because I mean, it could be a year
Yeah,
plus to do the
we can do
regular.
it temporary for, at least for now. I know that I called a lot of the management and, I'm sorry, the owners, and I know I'm gonna get the signatures, so if we can at least get them temporary, I'll get the signatures and I'll, is that possible, that I can do it
Yeah,
that
they
way?
usually like you to do the temporaries first
First.
before they put the permanents, because they're about $6,000 to put in the permanent ones, so they do like to have those in first to see, did they make a difference?
So just a friendly amendment to put temporary before the word speed bumps.
Okay.
Words.
Friendly amendment to add temporary before the word speed bumps. Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. Under discussion, Counselor McGivern?
I would suggest, and I know this may not go along with everybody, but this should be made a priority in terms of this street and the school in light of what just happened recently. The priority, I mean, is we've got several temporary requests out there, and they're going along very slowly. The good thing about the temporary is not only they can go up quickly, but they come with a traffic study, and we'll know the exact type of traffic we have in this situation and how better to handle it.
I'm not sure how much the temporary sets cost, but whatever they are, we need a few more sets because we only have 2. And it just seems like, I mean, we've all put in requests for, and it's like, you keep talking back like, you say to your constituent 2 years later and they're like, they're like, hey, didn't I ask you to put those in? They think like you blew them off, but you did file it, but it's 2 circulating around town, so we need to talk about that some more. Councilor LeBron Martinez.
Yeah, so as you all know, I've come in before you with other orders with the same issue in that street in regards to the trucks, that was parked next to the Sullivan and parking, request to avoid that. So there's a lot of issues and I'm concerned that something comes, and I've been addressed many times by the constituents and the school, and nothing gets done, and I need to know, that this gets done, please. That's why I am.
We're with you 100%. So motion on the floor is that this order be adopted, refer to the DPW, and with an emphasis on.
No.
Please
They
put
stopped that
immediate
this year to
attention to
save
this. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Item number 46 is introduced by Councilor LeBron Martinez, that the city place 4 stop signs in intersections where lights are not working and are blinking to prevent accidents until these are fully repaired. Boy, this sounds familiar. This was similar to Councilor Leahy's item 40. So ordinance on this?
Please, yes.
Okay.
Actually was submitted, but it was a late order, it was late at the time that I submitted, so they ran it this time, and I noticed that, Mr. Leahy also submitted it as well, so.
It's a great order, though.
It is. It is. And
It's,
just for the,
There was another accident, I think, yesterday, the day before, a bad one.
yeah, for the record, I did send that capital bond request with anybody gave me stuff here, and in it was at least $1 million for, traffic improvements of these. We've got to get going on this capital bond. There's a lot of things, especially these traffic lights, very dangerous.
yeah. These been constituents' requests, phone calls and concerns about what's happening with the lights, so.
And the fire department has mentioned this numerous times to us, they just need the money to do it.
Thank you.
Yep. Some of these, they just can't get the parts to the
I know.
controllers. That's the issue. There was a company in Texas, and it's a long story, and they can't even get the spare
can't,
parts. These
right.
machineries are so old,
Good plan.
All right. So, all in favor of sending 46 to ordinance?
Aye.
So moved. Item number 47, introduced by Counselor McGee, to give a proclamation to Roger Reedy for his 90th birthday celebration and for his 45 years of dedicated service to the city of Holyoke through his oil company, Reedy Oil. Mr. Reedy is still working in his 90th year of life, installing medical alarms for his son's business, Reedy Heating and Cooling.
Receive, adopt.
Okay, motion
Second.
made, seconded to receive and adopt. Under discussion, Counselor McGee, or speaks for itself? Yep. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Order that the City Council invite in the Chamber of Commerce Taxpayers Association to a Finance Committee to continue the budget collaboration.
Finance.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to receive
Copy to both.
Yep, motion's been made and seconded. Receive item 48, send to finance with a copy to the Chamber of Commerce and Taxpayers Association, and if you could address those specifically to Kathy Anderson and Helene Florio respectively, that would be appreciated. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. 49, introduced by Counselor McGee, that the DPW Sewer Division install shut-off systems in the sewer area of Pleasant and Harvard in order to help eliminate odor issues.
Receive, adopt, send to DPW, and was it United Water?
Motion's been made and seconded to receive, adopt, and refer to the DPW as well as a copy to United Water. Any discussion? Okay, here.
It really, it's just a valve to shut off during the summer because of the way the piping is over there. They suggested it, so I'm filing the order with regards. You know, because the smell over there, based on how the piping works, is horrendous.
Yikes.
And the residents are complaining, so.
I can see why.
I don't know how they do it, but they.
All in
said they
favor?
file an order for it.
Opposed? So moved. Item 50, introduced by Counselor McGee, that the DPW paint the crosswalks around Kennedy Park ASAP.
Receive, adopt, send to DPW.
Motion's been made, second, receive, adopt, refer to the DPW. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? So moved.
51 to 56, suspend the rules, take a package, and send to finance.
Okay. Motion on the floor is to suspend the rules to take items 51 through 56 as a package, refer them all to finance. 51. First of all in favor of suspending the rules to take them as a package?
Yep.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. 51 is that we invite in Whitney Anderson, Sandy Smith, Dave Martins, to get an update on the Ian White Morgan School boiler situation. 52 is a transfer of $6,110 for what appears to be over at Veterans Office. 53 is a grant related to Sustained Traffic Enforcement Program. 54 is a $50,000 free cash transfer for special counsel. And 55 is a transfer of $500 to in-state travel. And let's see, what department is that for? Or the law department. Still waiting for my $156 since last June, Kara. If you can get yours paid when we went to Boston. So, without further ado, 56, mea culpa. 56 is the Jackson Street CSO abatement grant. Motion on the floor is to take all of those items and refer them over to the Finance Committee. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. 57 is from Counselor Roman, that the City Council invite in Scott LeMay, owner of UWM Holdings Company located at 686 Main Street, before the City Council to present any cost savings to the city as well as revenue generated over the past 3 years. Would
It'll be so
committee
great
would
to
like
see
to-
him in again. I said it'll be great to see.
Yeah, we
Mr.
haven't seen
LeMay
him in a while.
Yes,
No, I
Mr.
haven't.
President. So again, I would like to, as the
Finance or public safety?
Yeah, I was thinking finance myself, and this was again, doing my due diligence as a counselor, going out to the businesses. I went and took a tour, and this comes out of these neighborhood association meetings. There's actually a big issue with trucks coming down Main Street, either side of Route 5 at exuberant hours. UMH was one of the companies that was identified, and Mr. LeMay was actually very good at rerouting his drivers to make sure they're using 391 and not Main Street and adjusting the hours. So as a result of that meeting and reading all of the due diligence, I asked him to come back in, and he was actually excited for this. So I think that it'd be a great discussion to hear.
Mr. President,
Yes, Council President.
get they put items from the Board of Health, they put like 23 items that they had to do, and something was about traffic. It's helping, so call Brian and get that too, because that'll help you.
Thank you, Counselor.
All in favor of referring to finance?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. 58 from Counselor Roman. Animal Control Officer immediately remove the current outdoor feeding shelter for cats located on Main near Dean. There's a lack of legal permits, and residents' neighbors are being adversely affected.
Mr. President, if I could suspend the rules and take up my late file item that has to deal with this as well, please.
All right.
Be added to that?
Yes.
Adding Counselor Bresnahan, that's always his favorite subject. Anything cat-related he wants on? Late file E is introduced by Counselor Roman that the following resident petition around a feral cat colony and reviewing the enforcement of feral cat colonies within the city ordinances. Motion to suspend the rules to take up final action on E. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. So, motion on the floor is to suspend the rules to combine 58 and late file E together. Is there a second to that? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, where would you like us to do?
I would like to send this to ordinance, actually, Mr. Chairman, because the constituents were actually referring to specific ordinances, and there's been some confusion with the residents around the animal enforcement officer, and actually stating this is on Dean property, that there is no permit in existence because of the predecessor. So I'd like this to be taken up in ordinance, please.
We do have a cat ordinance on the topic. This is true. Counselor Lisi.
Sure, I'd just like to offer by way of friendly amendment that because we don't need to create any new ordinances, if it's just a review of the ordinance, that it go to public service, public safety, whichever one seems more appropriate. But I do think that we did spend a significant amount of time reviewing the trap, neuter, and release program in the city, and so I think we did create some robust language there, and I think it's really just a matter of understanding like where the Board of Health or other enforcing agencies are having a hard time applying the ordinance.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I know these constituents very well, and they actually want a revision of the ordinance, and that's part of their petition. And likewise, through the current ordinance and a letter from the animal control officer that their petition and request to remove it was denied. So per my constituents, and you see a list of all of them right there, Mr. President, who want this, and I think I agree that there is current language, and they've studied, trust me, they've studied this language. They're actually going to offer some suggestions, so I think it's a great place to start an ordinance, actually. So that's what I would offer.
Yep, 16 residents signed the petition. And motion on the floor is to send the ordinance, but a friendly amendment has been
Well,
made.
I still, sorry, I need to just hash this out. Are those signatures certified? I mean, that's
No.
really how the petition comes through, to make sure that they're
Right.
registered voters. I mean, that's how the petitions get
Some of the names I
heard.
can't even read, so it's, somebody's signature could be,
So, like,
that could say Ronald Reagan for all I know. I don't know who's,
Mr. President, if I may.
but I'm sure that they check.
Yes, so
There is
this
addresses.
constituent Paul Bissett, is the one that initiated this, and I can tell you all 16 residents are all abutting this or near this area, and are the neighbors that he's physically knocked doors. And trust me, all 16 have called me or given me a call and a ring and said, "Yep." And I've gotten phone calls from an organization who's in support of keeping this there. So this is an alive and well discussion down in the Springdale Ingleside neighborhood, and we're actually inviting the animal control officer to our Thursday meeting after yours. So we're the day after your meeting. So if any counselors would like to come down at large, I would welcome you.
So, we have a request to go to ordinance. You have suggested that if it's a review, that we do
I'm
public
happy to withdraw, like, my motion if the maker wants it to go to ordinance. I'm just really questioning the procedure at this point in terms of, so,
Looking for an ordinance change, really, right? A review of the ordinances, okay.
but can you
But the
help?
question is, what changes and all of that, and
And procedurally, I mean, all other citizen petitions that have come before the ordinance committee have been, they've gone through the clerk's office. The clerk has,
Correct.
made sure that they're all registered
that's a
voters.
good point, and that should,
I mean,
yeah.
that's what I'm really, that's my sticking point at this.
Can we send it to public safety?
Yeah, so Mr. Chairman, I'll amend and send it to public safety for the review and time to allow my constituents to know the process of the correct citizens procedure, which I know we'll probably see next meeting in May, because they're gonna get on it. Thank you, Mr.
And so, yeah, and if you could
Yeah.
just have these,
Yep.
check with the clerk's office and get.
I definitely will. Thank you,
and
Mr.
have
President.
them just
Thank you,
certify.
Councilor Lisi.
Okay, great. Motion on the floor is to send to public safety. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Okay, we're in late file section of the meeting. Brings us to late.
Actually, Mr. President, item 59 hasn't been taken up.
Oh, I stand corrected, you're absolutely right. Item number 59, introduced by Councilor Roman, that the City Council create an official resolution to celebrate the Turn Hall's 145th anniversary in the city of Holyoke, in particular in the heart of South Holyoke. Adopt.
Yes, receive and adopt, Mr. President.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to receive and adopt. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Adopted. Late file section.
How many late files?
Not too many, about 4 more. Late file A. Dear Madam Clerk, effective today, I resign my elected position as City Councilor at Large. I would like to thank my constituents for their support. I will not forget it. To my friends on the City Council, thank you for making me feel part of the team over the last 2+ years. It has truly been an honor to serve this city, but I need to do what is best for myself and my family at the same time. Sincerely, Jennifer Shatnoff. Stated today. So I would say we just receive. Some other action needed of us. We'll have an order about the whole filling the vacancy. Myself and Councilor Leahy filed something on that. You'll hear that in a minute. Okay. All in favor of receiving?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Late file B is a rather lengthy communication. I referred to this earlier. It's all of the different stuff regarding the solar pilot. It's a bunch of different back and forth on different tax opinions on things.
Refer to ordinance.
Motion has been made and seconded to refer to ordinance. Any discussion? There is no discussion unless we suspend the rules. So all in favor of sending to ordinance?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Late file C. Order introduced by Councilors Leahy and Jordan. Order that the Honorable City Council appoint a person to fill the at-large seat of Jennifer Prosner Shatnoff, who resigned from this seat as of April 5th, 2016. This is late file. I would recommend that we take up final action on this and that we, okay, let's just do that first and then we'll get to what we'll do. So all in favor of taking final action on this item?
Motion to suspend the rules, right?
Suspend the rules, yep. I'll suspend the rules and take a final action on this item. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed, so moved. I'm going to recommend that we table this, but that we send a copy to the Personnel Department to put up on the website and to advertise for people, one and all, that would be interested in this position. It's my valued opinion, or my humble opinion, that I value my own opinion. Thank you, in all humility. That it's probably best that we do try to fill this as reasonably soon as we can.
How about the May 3rd meeting?
That's where I'm going, yep. Is that theoretically, if we could pull this off May 3rd, we could take a vote to fill the position of the counselor at large. The thinking on it is, one, I do not feel we need to have interviews. That's my humble opinion. Everybody that's going to come to us is all known people, and they are coming out of the woodwork. I mean, I don't know about you, but it's like, I'm getting tons of calls. Some people, like, you totally expected those calls, and like others is like, wow, you're interested? And but it's everybody. I haven't heard a name of someone yet that I don't know personally, and well, either served with them previously or otherwise. So I would submit to you that I don't think we need to get into cross-examinations of these people publicly to, you know, what's your X on blah, blah, blah. I mean, we are going to individually do our own vetting of candidates, who you yourself feel comfortable, call them up, quiz them. These people are tripping over themselves to get to you and talk to you for their vote. So I think that would do the trick. And then if we could pull it off, we could have a vote on May 3rd. Does that sound reasonable to everybody? Okay. So I think that gives us about a month to have people come forward. We'll advertise. I'll make sure it's a point to Mike Plaisance that there'll be an article saying, come one, come all, Holyoke residents, come, you know, talk to city councilors, tell us who wants in. And then, as you know, it's first one to 8 votes gets the position, and we would have a roll call vote on the 3rd to try and fill the job. So that's what I'm looking at for a process. Councilor Lisi.
Thank you. You know, I'm happy to go along with that idea. I have enjoyed the interview process in the past. I know that in the past, we've mostly been filling seats on the school committee where we've had to like have joint meetings, and I've always found the interviews useful in that sense in particular. But I've always enjoyed having the interviews and seeing a candidate in the chambers and getting a sense for how they may, you know, speak during a meeting, or, you know, just like their composure in this setting was always very useful. So I would, again, it's not going to like make or break my decision, but I did enjoy and would actually like to see the interview process.
Okay. Well, we'll give that some thought, but I agree with you. There is value to it, but at the same time, if we think brevity and speed of process is more important too, so that we could actually vote to have somebody on board for the 3rd, you know, I think that's also something to consider as well. But Councilor Sullivan, what's your thoughts?
No, I've been thinking, I don't know that it's our place to vet it or interview anywhere. The voters put each and every one of us here by their vote in November, that we ought to just go right down the list. Whoever came in 9th is next in line for the spot. If they decline, whoever was 10th is next in line for the spot. If they decline, whoever was 11th is next in line for the spot. That seems the simplest, fairest way is to just recognize what was voted back in November.
Yeah, that's some people's opinion. That's
Mr. President?
That's not my opinion. That's not the process. You could vote for somebody who never ran. You could vote for the 9th. You could vote for the 15th. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. You know, Councilor Valentin.
Could you state for the record and for those who might still be watching us at home, what the process was in 2009? When Councilor Wellahan passed away, and how that appointment took place? Was it the next person in line, or was
No,
it?
His son was appointed.
So there's.
It was as nepotistic as that. So I don't know what's that is. It does, I don't know, Jen's daughter's not young enough to serve, so, I mean, he's too young to serve.
I'm actually asking a serious question about, has there been a precedent before where the next person in line
All over the map.
has been?
I'll give you a Ward 1 school committee, city council. I sat here, it was decided that, oh God heavens, Juan, the fella, George Cruz, the gentleman who worked for the DPW, Joe, you remember that? And George, in the 11th hour, like walking up, like literally almost like jumping off the trash truck, he worked for the DPW and ran for Ward 1 city councilor, and he was elected. He beat Jim McDermott, who was the incumbent, right? And we get up to the high school, we're all getting sworn in, blah, 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 and they said, if you take this job, you're gonna have to get off the DPW, right? So he ends up in the end resigning as not taking the job as Ward 1 city councilor. And Jim McDermott went for the job, the guy he just beat, right, who had been the incumbent. City council voted for somebody, didn't even run, totally out of left field. So it's literally all over the map. Some people who have, I don't know if Jim Jakowski was when Dan Burns got off, I don't know if Jim was the 9th candidate. That was an at-large one, many, many years ago. But, yeah, it's kind of all over the map, to be honest with you. There's been no pattern. But to your point, Jack Willahan, the last at-large, vacancy, Jay.
I mean, was that the last at large?
Also, the 9th vote-getter at that point in time for the election that year?
No, because he wouldn't have ran against his father.
Father died.
His father died, so he didn't run for city council. In fact, he didn't even run in the 2009 election because he felt that it would be unfair he felt he had some upsmanship in the general election by being the at-large pointed-in guy. So he didn't even run in 09. He ended up running in 11, as we know, and he didn't make it, and I believe it was 11. But there you go.
Thanks.
So, but, yeah, Counselor Tomlin?
Give you a little history, Kevin. You're familiar with where I was at, right, in 2001?
Yeah.
I was the 9th vote getter, Josie, in 2000 and actually in 1999 got beat by 75 votes. And I did interview. I like Councilor Lisi's idea about being interviewed to see how people go. I think I went against about 6 other counselors and former counselors for that position. And I was selected as the 9th vote getter for that position. And I think Councilor Sullivan makes a great point. Everybody has their own ideas, but I think anybody that ran for the office and came in 9th place should be the next person on. But that's my opinion.
So some people think there's weight to that. Others think that's just a factor to consider.
So I apologize for having the year wrong. I'm just saying I had an understanding that this had happened before, and I guess I had the elections wrong. Sorry.
Well, no, what you had wrong was the fact that there's no trend. It's that with Jay, there wasn't, with Jack's seat, but with Peter, they went with that. I'm sure that wasn't the only factor, because he got voted in not just because of the fact he was the 9th, I assure you. I mean, people knew Peter. He was already experienced, you know.
A lot of threats, too.
Yeah, you said you wouldn't get your mail if you didn't.
But I was interviewed with about 6 other. I think Mr. Jakowski was there. I believe Lane
Connie
Pluta.
Baker.
Connie Baker.
She run?
Patty Devine actually was one that I ran against. So there was about 6 candidates at that time. And I think the interview process is great. I think if we have time, we should do that.
Well, we'll discuss that offline, but nevertheless, we all have to, there's no obligation to do that. Whatever we choose to do, we'll do, and that's up to each of you, you know, so. All right, so motion to table this and to send it over to personnel for the purpose of advertising and getting the word out that this position is vacant. All in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Late file D, introduced by Councilor Jordan, to suspend Rule 1 to cancel or reschedule the April 19th meeting due to being school vacation week. Motion to suspend the rules to take up final action on this. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Motion to, unless there's a desire to reschedule, that we just cancel the 19th meeting and we'll put it on for the 3rd.
Mr. President, I would make the amendment that we meet the following Tuesday in case there's anything
26th.
that's.
Okay.
That's an ordinance meeting, isn't it?
There is an ordinance meeting that night. We could try for the 25th, which is the Monday.
I'm trying to do public service on the 26th, on the 25th.
Could you do something before, like, could you go 6 to 7?
I could get back, I could get back to you on something like that, you know.
Huh?
Oh, right. Oh, I know, that's why.
Yeah, we need to make a decision on the 20. Could we do the Monday at 7 and then you try and do 6 to 7 on your committee? Or go with Wednesday?
I was gonna put the CAP project on amongst, you know, I got a jacket of about 20 orders.
Well, can that wait?
can reschedule.
Don't forget, if we go with this extra meeting, as Councilor Valentin suggested, we're gonna have another meeting the following week, too.
And maybe we end up having 2 very nice brief meetings because everything doesn't get slammed together.
Maybe, yep, that's possible.
I'll do whatever the will.
What do people prefer? That we go and just cancel that 19th and have it, and put it all on the 23rd, or we have a meeting on the 25th and have one on the 3rd? What's the preference?
That would be my preference.
Okay, Joe, what do you think?
We've done the back-to-back before, and that the second of the back-to-back becomes a no agenda and takes up a valuable night for a committee meeting. Like, you know, it's just,
Well, we already know the 3rd we would be talking about filling the vacancy. So we know that could take some time based on all the discussions. And if we're not going to do interviews, maybe a counteroffer to that is that at least everyone who's putting their name in the hat actually shows up here and does at least a 2-minute statement. I don't think that's something that's too terrible to ask. And maybe that's the time that we incorporate into that meeting. That would be my proposal.
Okay. Well, let's just have a show of hands then. All in favor of rescheduling the meeting to the 25th as opposed to just canceling and having it on the 3rd? All in favor of that? 6, okay. So 1, 2, so basically about even. All right, well, I'm willing to do either, to be perfectly honest with you, so. Does anybody have a really strong, how about, Joe made a point, Josie made a point, anybody else want to weigh in? To persuade us one way, because we're pretty much 50-50 doing it. Put it on the 3rd or have the 2 meetings.
Ordinance Committee's gonna be meeting on the 26th, so we're gonna have a tough week that week, and I'm still in favor of meeting, because I think it'll be brief, it'll be productive. We have these pending, election of officers of the auditor, and, I think that we should really do our best to move that appointment forward instead of waiting a whole nother month.
Even a week, but.
Mr. President, I agree. I think it's a week apart, and my committee, that's the week that the joint committee between the school committee and city council has planned because of school vacation week.